Chapter 2183. Inside the Bloodstone Mine, there was a two-way space channel between the sky-bearing fortress and the Bloodstone Mine. However, this formation would not be activated easily. Once it was activated, it would require the consumption of tens of thousands of bloodstones. This was because in the Blood Prison, the rules of space were even stricter. It was 100 times or even 1,000 times more difficult to teleport than in the outside world. Normally, it would not be activated unless there was a major event. However, no one would care about this rule at this time. However, Yishuan did not bring everyone along. He only brought the old butler and activated the teleportation formation on the spot. After a period of darkness, they appeared in the sky-bearing fortress. Just as they stabilized their footing, countless shouts traveled into their ears from afar. As far as the eye could see, countless blood demons were attacking the sky-bearing fortress in a frenzy. It's the blood demon tide. The old butler's expression suddenly changed. He thought that the Bloodstone Mine was dangerous enough. However, it was nothing compared to the blood demon tide. In the Blood Prison, the blood demon tide was not rare. The old butler had seen it many times over the years. However, it was rare to see one of such a large scale. They might as well just stay in the Bloodstone Mine. As far as the eye could see, the army of blood demons was everywhere within thousands of li. There was no telling how many of them there were. Once their defense was breached by the blood demons, not a single one of them would be able to escape. On the contrary, Yishuan had been in the Blood Prison for almost 5 years, but this was the first time he had seen the famous blood demon tide. Suddenly, he understood why everyone's expression changed at the mention of the blood demon tide. The horrifying scene of the blood demon tide that had spread for thousands of miles was enough to scare an ordinary person to death, let alone the others. The roars of countless blood demons were sharp and unpleasant. All of them were transmitted into the sky-bearing fortress, covering all other sounds. No one could hear what the others were shouting. Fortunately, everyone could still communicate with their divine thoughts. Otherwise, there was no way they could communicate in such a noisy situation. Go and tell the other elders about the Bloodstone Mine. I'll go and take a look first. Yishuan did not hesitate. He took a step forward. When he reappeared, he was already on the city wall of the sky-bearing fortress. At this moment, the blood demons had completely surrounded the sky-bearing fortress. There were no blind spots in the sky or on the ground. Countless spell formations that had been buried, since who knew when all came to life. They spurted out torrents of energy that swept into the horde of blood demons. Many blood demons could not dodge in time and were directly vaporized by the torrents of energy. However, it was of little use at all. There were just too many blood demons. Although there were quite a number of martial artists, they paled in comparison to the blood demons that occupied the entire blood prison. They were not on the same level at all. Hundreds and thousands of blood demons were swept to death every moment. The agony they felt before their deaths made their already hideous expressions even more hideous. At the same time, the array formations of the sky-bearing fortress were visibly shattering one by one. Every time an array formation shattered, the sky-bearing fortress martialists hiding inside would be instantly devoured by countless blood demons. Not even a single bone was left. Although they were all mythological experts, they did not have much of an advantage when faced with the terrifying tide of demons. They struggled for a moment and were devoured by the demons. Many mythical experts of the sky-bearing fortress could not help but turn pale when they saw this scene. They were afraid that the blood demons would rush in front of them and devour them in the next second. Damn it, why are there so many blood demons? Don't tell me they really broke through the entire sky-bearing fortress. That's very possible. It's not like the sky-bearing fortress has never been breached by a blood demon tide in history. There was a particularly large blood demon tide that broke through the sky-bearing fortress. At that time, all the martial artists were devoured by the blood demons. Not only the sky-bearing fortress, but many other fortresses like the Flying Cloud Fortress were also breached by the blood demons. It was said that a powerful Tao confirmation level blood demon personally attacked that time. That was why those fortresses were so vulnerable. However, this time, even if it's not that terrifying, I'm afraid we're still in danger. What about our transmission array? Are they all occupied by those elders? There's no other way. We've already tried it. The array has been completely blocked from the outside. We can only enter, but not exit. It's impossible for us to escape. Damn it, even if I have to die, I'll drag these beasts to hell with me. I won't let them have it easy. When they heard that the teleportation array could no longer be used, everyone's faces turned ashen. Then, they looked as if they were united against a common enemy. They had been forced into a dead end. Apart from fighting to the death, they had no other choice. They could only fight with their backs against the wall. It was impossible for them to surrender without putting up a fight. Boom! 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 A series of terrifying explosions came from the void. A tyrannical expert had made his move. It was a short and stout figure. Yi Shiwen fixed his eyes on him and saw that he was the second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. This area was probably the area he was responsible for defending. He would take action once the blood demons were in danger of the Sky-bearing Castle's formation. After mitigating this wave of attacks, his face was a little pale. He had obviously overexerted himself. From the beginning until now, danger would appear almost every once in a while. Even he had to take action frequently, which led to the rapid consumption of his real elemental energy. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, he was already next to Yi Shiwen. He stared at the blood demon tide in the sky and said, "Old Jiao, he already told me. So you're the famous Yi Shiwen." Obviously, he had already heard about Yi Shiwen's identity from the old butler, but he was not very concerned. Ha! Someone who can make Yao Xingqing and Jing Tianlei so nervous is indeed not a simple person. When I first saw you, I knew that you were not an ordinary person, but I didn't expect you to be so powerful. I think you must be a genius nurtured by the deification abyss. Unfortunately, I was also 1,000 years ago, but I was already at the peak of the mythical realm a few hundred years ago. Now, after another few hundred years, I'm still the same. Seeing Yi Shiwen's surprised expression, the second elder of the Sky-bearing Castle spoke the truth. He could not help but smile and said, "You're probably new here, so you don't know. Trash like us were once the genius nurtured by the deification abyss. Unfortunately, I couldn't break into the realm of Dao validation in the end. Now I can only hang around in this blood prison and bear all kinds of heavy exploitation by the deification abyss every year. Isn't it because it's easy to prove one's Dao here?" Yi Shiwen was a little stunned. He was a little puzzled at first. Where did these experts of the mythical realm come from? All of them came from the outside. It didn't seem very reasonable. However, after hearing what the second elder of the Sky-bearing Castle said, everything seemed to be clear. Most of the people here were probably those who failed in the genius seed selection. It was just that they failed. However, they were obviously not willing to give up and wanted to fight for the last time. They would stay here for hundreds of years, thousands of years, or even thousands of years. In the outside world, they were the masters of the world who could summon the wind and summon the rain. Here, they were just ordinary people. Even so, they were willing to do it. They only had one goal, and that was to prove one's Tao. You're more powerful than you were 2 years ago. Originally, I could understand why you hid your identity. Now that you've announced your identity, you obviously have the confidence to fight against Yao Xingqing. The second elder of the Sky-bearing Castle had already analyzed some basic things in an instant. Even if he did not have much information before, it could be seen that he was definitely not as simple as he looked. He was also a person with the heart of 7 orifices. However, it's a pity that you will probably die here today. If you didn't come back, you might have been able to escape. However, now that you've come back, you won't be able to go back. The blood demon tide this time is too huge and too strange. There were no signs at all. I originally suspected that there was something fishy about it. I also heard it just now. Now, I'm sure that it must be related to the Flying Cloud Castle. In the blood prison, although the blood demon tide happened from time to time, every blood demon tide had a reason, and it was usually caused by the change of the blood chi in the heaven and earth. It was impossible for the blood demon tide to suddenly burst out without any warning. Ha ha ha! The place that can bury me hasn't appeared yet. Yi Shiwen laughed loudly. His eyes were firm and full of confidence. He had a kind of invincible demeanor, as if nothing could stump him. At this time, a powerful blood demon tide rushed over again. Before the second elder of the sky-bearing castle could make a move, Yi Shiwen took the lead. A thunder spear appeared in his hand, and he directly stabbed it. Countless thunder dragons appeared on the tip of the spear, smashing everything. The blood demon tide was instantly resolved by him. No matter what level the blood demon tide was, it could not escape from Yi Shiwen's spear. All of them were killed by Yi Shiwen's spear and turned into blood chi that filled the sky. Yi Shiwen absorbed them into his body with the art of martial arts conversion. The martial arts consumed in the previous attack were directly replenished. In addition, the Phoenix regeneration technique was constantly replenishing his chi, allowing him to maintain his peak state at any time. It was far from enough to kill him by relying on the number of people. Good old nine, what a powerful martial instrument. However, your spear technique is just SOSO. The second elder of the Flying Cloud Castle said with a smile. He immediately pointed out the fact that Yi Shiwen's cultivation in spear techniques was SOSO. Yi Shiwen was not annoyed. This was a fact in itself. He was not specialized in this aspect. Old nine, let me ask you. Do you want to be the boss of the Sky-Bearing Castle? Although the Sky-Bearing Castle is not big, if you plan to dominate the Blood Prison, it can also be regarded as a foundation. Chapter 2184. Old nine, let me ask you. Do you want to be the boss of our Sky-Bearing Fortress? Although our Sky-Bearing Fortress isn't big, it can be considered as a foundation if you plan to dominate the Blood Prison. The second elder of Sky-Bearing Fortress looked at Yi Shiwen and said with a serious expression. Yi Shiwen was also stunned because he had never thought about this before. For him, this matter wasn't even considered as something that needed to be considered. To him, Sky-Bearing Fortress was just a place to hide his identity and find a quiet place to practice in seclusion. I can give you a hint. The boss is dead. Just before you came, he was lured out and died. He should have been killed by the people of Soaring Cloud Fortress. His identity nameplate is broken. Now we are in a situation without a leader. We don't even dare to release this news to the public. Otherwise, we don't even need to fight. The line of defense will collapse instantly. The second elder of Sky-Bearing Fortress looked at Yi Shiwen with a bitter smile and said, "What we need now is a leader who can lead us through this, and I think you are very suitable. Whether it is strength or skill, you are very suitable." Yi Shiwen pondered for a moment. If he could take over Sky-Bearing Fortress, the benefits would naturally go without saying. After all, Sky-Bearing Fortress was a force that had been built and established for countless years. If he could take over such a force, he could naturally struggle for many years. Moreover, he could seize the initiative in the future Blood Prison hegemony. He was only at the periphery of the Blood Prison, and those he encountered were not considered strong. However, he would enter the depths of the Blood Prison sooner or later. At that time, he would definitely encounter powerful existences in the depths of the Blood Prison. Previously, he had also asked Elder Kong about the powerful existences in the depths of the Blood Prison. Without exception, all of them had their own forces. They had countless experts under their command, and each of them was tyrannical to the extreme. Originally, for him, the hegemony of the Blood Prison was still very far away. However, now that he thought about it, it wasn't that far away anymore. Sky-Bearing Fortress was indeed a little remote, and it was not in line with his ideal place to establish his force. However, at the same time, it was far away from the center of the storm, and it would also give him enough time to develop. What's more, it could save him many years of hard work. Moreover, he was thinking of a faraway place. Sooner or later, he would have to return to the profound world and the ancient desolate era. Whether it was the human race in the profound world or the human race in the ancient desolate era, fighting alone was not enough. No matter how strong he was only strong by himself. How many situations like this had happened in the past? If a race wanted to develop, they would have to rely on their own foundation. They would need countless experts to hold the fort. The experts in the Sky-Bearing Castle were naturally very ordinary in the Blood Prison. But outside, Which one of them wasn't in existence that could summon the wind and summon the rain? With these experts in the legend realm, the profound world and the desolate era's human race could be said to be as stable as Mount Tai. It would also save him a lot of trouble. As long as you are willing to become the new great elder of sky-bearing fortress, we are willing to do our best to help you prove your Tao. The second elder of the towering sky fortress said. Seeing that Yi Shiwen was a little stunned, he couldn't help but say, "In the blood prison, it's the law of the jungle where the strong prey on the weak. It's impossible without a leader. Only if you develop well will we be able to benefit from it. When a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs will rise to the heavens. If you achieve the Tao in the future, our towering sky fortress can also be upgraded to the towering sky city. At that time, we will be able to attract countless talents to join us." The second elder spoke very sincerely. It could even be said that he didn't hide anything. He hoped that Yi Shiwen could take over the position of the great elder. "We can even worship you as the fort lord. If you achieve the Tao in the future, you will be the city lord." The second elder threw out another important condition. Currently, whether it was sky-bearing fortress or flying cloud fortress, they were all under the elder system. There was no fort lord because no one was willing to submit to anyone. The number of elders and so on only stated the order of entry. However, it was different now. If they worshipped Yi Shiwen as the fort lord, it meant that they were willing to be his subordinates. It was completely different from before. This condition could not be described as not generous. He had also seen Yi Shiwen's overwhelming strength. That was why he made such a decision. With such a powerful fort lord in charge, their sky-bearing fortress would no longer have to worry about the crisis of the fortress being destroyed at any time. Right now, many of the tyrannical existences in the depths of the blood prison have also established their own forces. There are blood demons, foreign powerhouses, and also powerful existences from the second district and even the first district. It is said that this is related to their divine nations. As for the specific reason, I have not achieved the Tao, so I am not very clear. However, it should have a great relationship with their cultivation. In order to convince Yi Shiwen, the second elder of sky-bearing fortress had spared no effort. One could imagine how much importance he placed on Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen hadn't confirmed his Tao yet, so he didn't have EMO to ask about it now. However, there must be a reason since the other Tao confirming experts were doing so. Yi Shiwen didn't have EMO to inquire about it. Although he did not know the specific reason, it was always good to be prepared in advance. In addition, he had also weighed the pros and cons. This matter could be said to be a win-win situation. He had won the foundation of his forces, and the sky-bearing fortress had also won a powerful protective umbrella. There was no free lunch in the world, and there was no love without reason. Naturally, there must be a reason why the people in the sky-bearing fortress were so attentive. Then I will not decline. However, is this your idea, or did the other elders agree? Asked Yi Shiwen. Jin Buhuan greets the fort master, said the second elder of sky-bearing fortress hurriedly with his hands cupped. He was really treating Yi Shiwen as a master and not an equal existence like before. It was conceivable that he had bet all his treasures on Yi Shiwen, betting that Yi Shiwen could achieve the Tao. Yi Shiwen could not help but feel a little embarrassed. Only now did he know that the name of the second elder of sky-bearing fortress was Jin Buhuan. Previously, he did not care about it at all. He only regarded the sky-bearing fortress as a passing stop in his life. Don't worry, Fort Master. We have just communicated with our divine senses. We all agree that you will become our Fort Master. However, Fort Master, shouldn't we first resolve the blood demon tide in front of us? Otherwise, everything will be like a flower in the mirror and the moon in the water. Don't you think so? Said Jin Buhuan with a smile. Yi Shiwen did not know whether to laugh or cry. However, he also had this intention. Since he had become the Fort Master, he had to show the spirit of a Fort Master. Originally, the sky-bearing fortress had nothing to do with him. It did not matter if he left. Now, the sky-bearing fortress was his foundation. Whoever destroyed his foundation was equivalent to taking his life. Naturally, he would not let it go. Just in time, I will also let you see my means. Yi Shiwen knew that although they had agreed to let him become the fort master, he still had to show enough strength to win their hearts. In this world where the weak were prey to the strong, strength was the foundation of everything. As he spoke, the thunderbolt spear in his hand whizzed out at an astonishing speed. It directly soared into the sky as if it had pierced a huge hole in the sky. Hundreds and thousands of blood demons were instantly vaporized. At a glance, it looked like a huge hole had been pierced in the blood-colored sky. Crash! Immediately after, the thunderbolt spear directly turned into a lightning swamp with boundless power of thunder, and then blasted down. Boom! With a terrifying roar, the long spear fell to the ground fiercely and blasted a huge pit with a radius of hundreds of miles. All the blood demons within this range were vaporized by the power of thunder that swept out. For a moment, a large, empty area was cleared in the middle of the endless army of blood demons. Yi Shiwen's figure quietly landed at the end of the spear. He stood proudly and looked at the countless blood demons around him with cold eyes. So strong. Who is that person? Why haven't I seen him before? Someone exclaimed. He was completely shocked by Yi Shiwen's strength. However, after thinking about it carefully, he realized that he had never seen this person before. It was as if he had descended from the sky. That is the Ninth Elder. The real identity of the Ninth Elder is not the deadly young master, but Yi Shiwen. He is the Yi Shiwen who was jointly wanted by Yao Xingqing and Jing Tianlei, one of the top 10 experts of the 3rd District, a few years ago. What Yi Shiwen? He is now our fort master. Some well-informed people had already received the news that the sky-bearing fortress, which originally had no fort master, actually had its first fort master. Such a shock could be imagined, and it caused quite a commotion among the crowd. However, the commotion only lasted for a short while. Firstly, it was because there were too many blood demons, and they did not have the time to pay attention to such things. Secondly, they were not the ruling class. For them, whether it was the fort master or the elders who ruled, there was no difference at all, and it would not affect them. Therefore, it did not matter. Therefore, they quickly accepted Yi Shiwen as the first fort master calmly. More importantly, Yi Shiwen did indeed have such strength. His move just now had completely stunned everyone. Such strength was rare, even among the peak of the mythical realm. For Master, just do it for them. Let them see your strength and prove that we did not make the wrong choice. Jin Buhuan murmured. While everyone was still immersed in the shocking news, Yi Shiwen also started to take action. Although his spear had cleared out a lot of space, there were just too many blood demons. Almost in an instant, the entire space was filled again. Countless blood demons roared and rushed toward Yi Shiwen. Chapter 2185. Yi Shiwen could see clearly that there were countless ferocious blood demons in the endless blood clouds. There were all kinds of blood demons, and their bodies were condensed from countless blood essences. They were very powerful, and there were many blood demons in the myth realm. Among them, there were many blood demons that were extremely tall. Some of them were thousands of zhang tall, and their claws were like mountains as they smashed down. Moreover, these blood demons were not ordinary creatures. Many of them had intelligence, and they were not like the blood demons in the blood world. They were very powerful, but they all cultivated a strange kind of martial arts. It was different from any kind of martial arts that Yi Shiwen had seen before. This was the strangest thing. However, in this blood prison, there was no doubt that there was nothing more powerful than this kind of martial arts. They could directly use the blood energy that filled the entire blood prison. It was very strange. Although they had intelligence, they were cruel and murderous. They were like fighting machines, and they would not stop until they were dead. In particular, when Yi Shiwen opened his magic eyes, he could clearly see that there were not only myth realm experts among these blood demons, but there were also peak myth blood demons hidden in the depths. They were the ones controlling these blood demons and making them attack the sky-bearing fortress again and again. The powerful blood demons at the peak of the myth realm had an indescribable blood aura that spread out and formed strange pictures. It was a group of powerful divine abilities, and it showed that the blood demon's understanding of their martial arts had reached a profound level. Yi Shiwen's actions had obviously alarmed a blood demon at the peak of the myth realm. It was a tall, humanoid blood demon that looked like a mountain. He raised his head and looked at Yi Shiwen. A pair of huge bloody eyes were staring at Yi Shiwen. They were filled with endless killing intent, but it seemed as if his mind had been erased. There was no other emotion in his eyes, and a horrifying bloody aura emanated from his body. Children, go. Devour all of these outsiders and plunder everything they have. Although we are suppressed in the blood prison and can't cultivate, we can still prove our way. As long as we prove our way, we can dominate an area. There will be no one in this world who can control us. The blood demon spoke in the human language. Then, Yi Shiwen felt a tyrannical force sweeping out from the sky, driving those blood demons to form a blood-red river, rushing towards Yi Shiwen to kill him. The endless tide of blood demons was surging over from all directions. Just looking at their hideous faces was enough to make one feel suffocated. However, Yi Shiwen wasn't afraid at all. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and punched out. Human Dao Fist. Boom! Yi Shiwen's People Dao Fist formed an endless power of the mortal world and swept out. The void exploded, forming a large area of space collapse. These blood demons who were rushing over aggressively just now were blown up by Yi Shiwen in an instant. Boom! The surrounding sky was shattered in an instant. Those blood demons that were blown up by Yi Shiwen's punch also turned into a huge amount of blood chi. The blood chi was collected by the heart of the blood realm, and then fell into his body. He absorbed it with the art of assimilation. Although it didn't make his cultivation further in a short period of time, it cleansed his body and replenished his consumption just now. The Hua Gong Great Law was so overbearing that it could almost be said that there was no reason to talk about it. With the energy absorption of the Hua Gong Great Law, coupled with the assistance of the Phoenix regeneration technique, it could be said that unless he used the Ghost Heart Fire Array, which was far beyond his level of energy, he was almost in an invincible position. It was impossible to exhaust his Zhen Yuan. All the blood essence of these blood demons were absorbed by Yi Shiwen and directly poured into the heart of the blood realm. Yi Shiwen found that after these blood demons died, after passing through the heart of the blood realm, they faintly brought out a kind of blood martial Dao. It was a kind of martial Dao that he had never come into contact with before. He frantically analyzed it in the mysterious space. Yi Shiwen thought in his heart. He was now considered to be experienced and knowledgeable. Although he had not heard of some martial Dao, he had seen it before. He really didn't know about the blood martial Dao of this blood demon. Faintly, he also deduced some things from it. Although there was no way to directly practice it, it also expanded his knowledge, which was considered as an unexpected surprise. Although he kept on using big moves and consumed a lot of chi, with the blood demons themselves to replenish the chi and blood that Yi Shiwen lost, it was not a big deal at all. He clearly saw that these blood demons were under the command of the blood demons, who were at the peak of the myth realm. That was why they were so fierce and fearless. Otherwise, after such a long time of attack, they still couldn't take down the Sky Fortress. Otherwise, these blood demons who were not low in intelligence would have long withdrawn. To catch bandits, first capture the king. To shoot a man, first shoot the horse. Yi Shiwen also understood this principle, so it could be said that he was almost holding a thunder spear in his hand, killing his way into the group of blood demons. His target was the extremely powerful blood demon who was at the peak of the myth realm. Boom! 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 The formidable power continued to explode. The power of thunder itself was the strongest power in the world. At the same time, it was also incomparably explosive. Yi Shiwen's thunder spear was vividly manifested as a result of the sudden explosion of thunder power. Every time Yi Shiwen attacked with the thunder spear, a large number of blood demons would be blasted to death by him. In the distance, Fascia Buhuan was dumbfounded. He never expected that Yi Shiwen would be so tyrannical. He was also at the peak of the 9th level of Powong realm, an existence at the peak of the myth realm. He couldn't belittle himself. In such a situation, he naturally wouldn't die immediately if he directly attacked. However, he would probably be trapped and unable to move an inch. In the end, he would be exhausted to death. As for Yi Shiwen, he was attacking left and right. He didn't need to be a match for him at all. It could be said that his injuries were invincible. What was even more terrifying was that Yi Shiwen's attacks were all big moves. They were like cannonballs that covered a large area. However, the surging qi and blood in his body seemed to have never decreased. It didn't stop surging for a moment. It was like a great river. People could feel the surging power from afar. The gap between them was obvious. If he was still a little unconvinced at the beginning, then he was completely convinced now. Strength. This was the true strength of a person who could become a castle lord. Yi Shiwen swept all the way and directly killed his way into the center of the blood demons. Wherever he passed, none of the blood demons could stop him. His target was also very clear. He directly rushed towards the blood demon who was at the peak of the myth realm. These blood demons wanted to stop him frantically, but they couldn't do anything. Compared to Yi Shiwen, they were really too weak. Yi Shiwen's actions had also completely angered this blood demon who was at the peak of the myth realm. This foreign warrior actually dared to challenge his authority. He was simply courting death. Suddenly, at this moment, this powerful blood demon who was at the peak of the myth realm instantly attacked. A long saber suddenly appeared in his hand, and he instantly slashed towards Yi Shiwen. This was a saber that could shatter heaven and earth. Even though Yi Shiwen was already prepared, he still felt surprised. The saber aura directly swept out and turned into surging blood qi. It was as if a blood god had been resurrected from a distant era. How dare you show off in front of me with such insignificant skills? I will now show you what a real saber technique is. World-shattering saber. In Yi Shiwen's hand, the emergence, immortal exterminating saber suddenly appeared in his hand. An extremely powerful saber aura instantly spread out. World-shattering saber. He directly swept out with his saber. The entire world seemed to be cut in half. The powerful saber aura also swept out. With the power of the emergence, immortal exterminating saber, the power of the saber aura had risen to another level. Boom! A terrifying roar sounded. Yi Shiwen's world-shattering saber was invincible. Even the world was shattered, let alone the saber aura from a blood demon who was at the peak of the myth realm. In the next second, the saber aura was completely destroyed. Immediately after, Yi Shiwen's saber aura followed like a shadow and directly struck the body of this extremely powerful blood demon who was also at the peak of the myth realm. Puff! This blood demon who was at the peak of the myth realm was directly slashed in half. His spirit was destroyed, and he could not be more dead. When the part of the blood demon that was under his control saw this scene, they could not help but break free from his control and fled in all directions. If they were not constantly being controlled, they would have long wanted to escape. It was not that easy to break through such a fortress that had existed for countless years. At this moment, a group of people was watching the battle from afar at a place thousands of miles away from the blood demon army. Among them, there were two people. One of them was a middle-aged man dressed in a green robe. His strength was outstanding. As he spoke, his figure had completely disappeared into the void. The other was a noble young master dressed in a gorgeous robe. He had a fair face and was extremely handsome. From time to time, he would play the flute in his hand, as if he was activating something. Young Master Yang is still the best. With just a mere trick, he is about to destroy the sky-bearing fortress. Behind these two people, there was a group of dozens of figures. All of them were tyrannical experts of the myth realm. Even the weakest among them was at the 6th level of the Paong realm. And one of the experts at the 9th level of the Paong realm could not help but flatter the noble young master. This is nothing. If my father were to play this tune, let alone a small fortress, even a city would be conquered, said the noble young master proudly. Chapter 2186. The cities in the blood prison were not as fragile as they were in the outside world. With the strength of a mythical expert, they could even destroy a world. But it was different in the blood prison. Even an expert at the peak of the myth realm would find it very difficult to break a fortress. Even if many myth realm experts gathered together, they would only be able to form a fortress. As for forming a city, it would only be possible if there were experts at the Tao confirming level presiding over it. Otherwise, if so many warriors gathered in a city without a super expert presiding over it, it would only become a fat piece of meat in the eyes of the top experts of the evil path, devil path, and blood demon clan. Moreover, if one was not a Tao confirming expert, it would be impossible for so many mythical experts to follow him wholeheartedly. Although the peak mythical expert and the Tao confirming expert were only one realm apart, the status and strength of the two were worlds apart. Out of hundreds of experts at the peak mythical expert, there might not be one who could truly prove the Tao. And out of hundreds of experts at the peak mythical expert, there might not be one who could cultivate to the 9th level of the Paong realm. It could be imagined that these Tao confirming experts were almost 1 in 10,000 among the mythical experts. In order to take down a city, the first thing one had to do was to defeat the Tao confirmation experts guarding the city. Only then would it be possible, although the others did not dare to agree. After all, the matters of the Tao confirming experts were not something they could speculate about. Their strength was also not something they could easily guess. At this time, they nodded one after another, not daring to anger young Master Yang. They all knew very well that although young Master Yang was only one of the hundreds of children of that powerful existence, he was also one of the most valued children. It was quite possible for him to prove the Tao in the future. That's right, that's right. Everyone nodded and praised. On the surface, there was no sign of disagreement. Young Master Yang just nodded proudly and said, "Your flying cloud castle has been struggling to conquer such a small sky-bearing castle. How can I believe that you have the ability to do things for me in the future?" These people turned out to be experts of the flying cloud castle, and the middle-aged man in green was the great elder of the flying cloud castle. A hint of displeasure flashed across the great elder's face. He was already so old, yet he still had to be lectured by a junior who was tens of thousands of years younger than him. Given his pride, it was only natural that he felt extremely displeased. However, this displeasure only lasted for a moment, and he didn't dare continue to show it. Even though he didn't care about this young Master Yang, he couldn't ignore the extremely terrifying existence standing behind him. That existence could probably kill him with a single finger. Yes, it's mainly because the great elder of the sky-bearing fortress is quite difficult to deal with. Moreover, there's also the 9th elder. His origin is unknown, but he's very powerful. We can't do anything about it. The great elder of the flying cloud fortress said helplessly. This was also the truth. If that was not the case, he would have been equivalent to the castle lord of the flying cloud castle. He would have enjoyed such a position. So why did he choose to rely on this young Master Yang? It was because he was keenly aware that Yi Shiwen's arrival would bring a great change to the status of the Flying Cloud Fortress and the Sky-Bearing Fortress. In the face of a truly tyrannical expert, numbers were meaningless. For example, he had the 8th Division Celestial Flag in his hand. Even if he encountered all the main forces of the Sky-Bearing Fortress and so many experts at the peak of the Myth Realm, he could still escape with ease. It was nothing at all. Moreover, Yi Shiwen also possessed the strength to contend with him with the 8th Division Celestial Flag. This was the most important thing. In this case, there were too many uncertain factors. Perhaps he would never have imagined that the current Yi Shiwen he had estimated was the Yi Shiwen from 2 years ago. Compared to 2 years ago, the current Yi Shiwen's strength had improved tremendously. A scholar who had been away for 3 days must be looked at in a different light. Moreover, 2 years had already passed. According to his understanding, such a situation did not exist. His strength was already at the limit of the peak of the Myth Realm. How could Yi Shiwen grow stronger than him? Even if it was not the limit, it was impossible to improve to such a level in 2 years. That was illogical. You've already tricked the Great Elder out and killed him. As for the 9th Elder, it doesn't matter. Didn't you send 5 experts over? It would be too shameful if 5 people couldn't even kill one of them. Besides, if it really doesn't work, I can do it myself. However, I won't leave the Bloodstone Mine for you. I'm going to take it all away. Young Master Yang obviously did not care about these things. For him, all of this was not difficult at all. He was the true son of God. Who could compete with him? Even the great elder of the Flying Cloud Fortress, who was known to be at the peak of the myth realm, was nothing in his eyes. It was just a case of a monkey claiming to be the king when there was no tiger in the mountain. As for the ninth elder of the Sky Fortress, it did not matter where he came from or where he came from. He would just kill him. He waved the flute in his hand. This was not an ordinary flute. It was a god artifact with a defect. It could use demonic music to control these blood demons. It was not easy for him to borrow it from his father. This kind of defective divine artifact was very rare. If it had not been for a coincidence, even a powerful existence like his father would not have been able to have such a defective divine artifact. Who is that? All of a sudden, he saw a figure leaping into the midst of countless blood demons without him noticing. His entire person was like a thunderstorm. Wherever he passed by, countless blood demons would be minced into pieces on the spot. Then, they would turn into a sky full of bloody aura and be absorbed by him. That terrifying existence was like an incomparably powerful ancient chariot, crushing everything in its path. Only death awaited those who tried to block its path. This was only a way out. As he said this, the experts of the Flying Cloud Fortress were also stunned. They all spoke one after another. Who the hell is this person? This is too terrifying. Although many of these blood demons are not even at the mythical level, there are so many of them that they are enough to drown a peak mythical expert. Yet he doesn't care and just kills them all. Look, he's fighting a blood demon at the peak of the myth realm. Just how strong is he? The mythical experts of the Flying Cloud Fortress saw that man, who looked like an extremely powerful god of war, attacked. A great battle broke out instantly, and the sky was torn apart by the airflow created by the battle between the two sides. That man was Yishuan. His entire body was protected by countless wind and thunder powers. No attack could break through the barrier of his wind and thunder powers. However, because of this, his spiritual ether was being consumed at an alarming rate. However, he continued to beat up those blood demons and used the heart of the blood world to refine the blood chi of those blood demons. Then, he used the cultivation conversion grand technique to absorb the blood chi and constantly replenish his real essence. Wherever he went, he was invincible. Moreover, he didn't have to worry about running out of real essence. As long as he continued to kill, his real essence would never run out. He knew very well that there were too many blood demons. Even if he wanted to kill them all, it would be impossible. There was simply no end to them. However, he still had another way, and that was to kill all the blood demons at the peak of the mythical level. Although there were many blood demons at the peak of the mythical level, there were still far fewer of them compared to the endless blood demon army. He was practically invincible. The blood demons kept attacking him, trying to stop him from advancing, but it was useless. They were no match for him at all. However, he was also annoyed by the blood demons. He finally understood why Sky Towering Castle, which had so many experts at the peak of the mythical realm guarding it, would turn pale when the blood demons were mentioned. Even the weakest among them was at the mythical realm. Not everybody was as strong as him and could not care less when faced with the blood demons. Most people, even if they were experts at the peak of the myth realm, could only flee in panic when faced with a tide of blood demons of such a scale, not daring to go forward. Because of this, be it the Sky-bearing Fortress or the Flying Cloud Fortress, they were dumbfounded when they saw him rush in and kill all the blood demons. They were completely dumbfounded. There was actually someone who could do this. What was even more terrifying was that he could reach such a level when he was not even at the peak of the mythical level. The blood demon at the peak of the mythical level had already discovered Yishuan's existence. When it saw that its subordinates could not stop Yishuan, it decided to attack directly. Its huge body that was thousands of feet tall was as fast as lightning. Its sharp claws suddenly slashed down, and a terrifying roar burst out from its mouth. Yishuan's body did not move. His hands directly glowed with golden light, and he suddenly met the huge, sharp claws. Bang! The claws, one big and one small, collided in the void. A terrifying force directly surged out, forming a huge wave that rolled out in all directions. The blood demons who could not dodge in time screamed, and turned into a cloud of blood mist. Even the aftermath of the battle between these two terrifying existences could destroy them. This was the so-called fight between immortals, and mortals suffered. Suddenly, the blood demon at the peak of the mythical level kept roaring. Endless blood-colored flames burned on its sharp claws, burning directly towards Yi Shiwen through the air. A hint of a smile appeared in Yi Shiwen's eyes, and he slowly said, "There's no time. I won't play with you anymore. I'll finish you off with one move." Chapter 2187. As he spoke, Yi Shiwen opened his mouth and formed a powerful suction force. The blood-colored flame was swallowed by him. The blood-colored flame was constantly wreaking havoc in his body. However, it only lasted for a moment before it was suppressed by the Nanming mythical fire that emerged from his body. It even swallowed and assimilated the flame, making his Nanming mythical fire even more powerful. The Nanming mythical fire was a famous mutated flame in the world. Yi Shiwen could even endure the Nanming mythical fire, and even nurture it. What more than mere blood-colored flame? It was nothing. Then, Yi Shiwen clenched his 5 fingers into a fist, and the power of the mortal world was formed. It spread out from his fist in tension, and vaguely evolved into a world of mortals. The surging mortal world was the most powerful force in the world. The deepest mystery of the human Tao fist was contained in the surging mortal world. Boom! Yi Shiwen's fist force soared into the sky. The dazzling golden light covered all the colors in the world. It was as if the sun had exploded in the sky. Everyone was blinded all of a sudden. Yi Shiwen's human Tao fist blasted forward and instantly blasted towards the blood demon at the peak of the mythical realm. At this moment, many blood demons seemed to have gone mad and rushed forward in a frenzy. In an instant, all of them were suppressed to death by Yi Shiwen's fist force. There were no accidents. His fist force did not lose momentum and directly blasted towards the blood demon at the peak of the mythical realm. Bang! The blood demon at the peak of the mythical realm was blasted to death by his fist without any suspense. The difference in strength between the two sides was too great. Yi Shiwen had completely integrated 3 martial arts incarnations. In the past 2 years, the saber arts incarnation that he had condensed had also been integrated. Coupled with the 5 Emperor's battle armor, he was already in his strongest state at this moment. He was invincible and unstoppable. In ordinary battles, he would not choose to activate the 3 martial arts incarnations because it would consume too much energy. The 3 martial arts incarnations were constantly consuming energy. After activating the 3 martial arts incarnations at the same time, his strength would increase exponentially. However, at the same time, the consumption would also increase exponentially. He could not fight in this state for too long. Therefore, he would not stop fighting. He could not stop for even a moment. Once he stopped, his consumption would exceed his replenishment. After killing this mythical peak blood demon, Yi Shiwen absorbed all the blood essence in its body, replenishing the consumption of activating the 3 martial arts incarnations at the same time. Sure enough, after he killed the blood demon at the mythical peak, the nearby blood demons screamed and fled. They weren't stupid and couldn't see how powerful Yi Shiwen was. They were just suppressed by the blood demon at the mythical peak. High-level blood demons were born to suppress low-level blood demons. They had witnessed Yi Shiwen's terror with their own eyes. It could be said that he was invincible. No one was his opponent. Flying Cloud Castle, young Master Yang, and the others had witnessed Yi Shiwen beheading this blood demon expert who was at the peak of the myth realm. He's so strong. A blood demon at the peak of the myth realm couldn't even take a punch from him and was killed. We should have heard of such great power. But why haven't we? Someone said, puzzled. Could he be the rumored new 9th Elder of the Sky-Bearing Castle? Only the 9th Elder could possibly be him. That's right. He must be the 9th Elder. Otherwise, it's impossible that we didn't get any information about a master like He Yang. He's so powerful. No wonder Old 7 and Old 8 were defeated by him. He does have such strength. Damn it, he's trying to ruin our plan. Many people couldn't help but roar. The soaring cloud fortress was putting everything on the line this time. They wanted to get rid of the sky-bearing fortress, their greatest threat. Among the nearby fortresses, they were the closest to each other. Because of this, the competition between the two sides was also very intense. It was true that the sky-bearing castle was no match for them. They had been suppressed by them for years, but at the same time, the sky-bearing castle had restrained more than half of their strength. They couldn't completely free up their hands to expand outwards. Therefore, this time, they had already made up their mind to eradicate this evil neighbor. Who knew that such a guy would appear? Damn it, we can't let him continue like this. Otherwise, our plan will all be ruined, someone exclaimed. However, there was nothing they could do. Yi Shiwen was too strong. He could be said to be invincible. Even the Blood Demon army couldn't stop him, let alone them. In their eyes, Yi Shiwen didn't stop at all. After killing a Blood Demon at the peak of the Myth Realm, he directly pounced on the next Blood Demon at the peak of the Myth Realm. Everyone's expression changed. This was the biggest weakness of the Blood Demon Tide. As long as the leader of the Blood Demon Tide was killed, the other Blood Demons would naturally collapse. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. However, it turned out that it was not a weakness because nobody had ever been able to take the head of a general in a tide of blood demons, and it was just an army of 10,000. The infinite blood demons were so numerous that even the soldiers themselves felt that their blood was freezing, not to mention the enemy. Now that such a person had appeared, this flaw that was not a weakness was suddenly magnified. Although there were still a lot of blood demons at the peak of the Myth Realm, they couldn't withstand such a slaughter. If Yi Shiwen killed a blood demon at the peak of the Myth Realm with a punch, how long could the remaining blood demons last? How were they supposed to play? They couldn't play happily at all. Seeing Yi Shiwen advancing all the way to the front of another blood demon at the peak of the Myth Realm, the great elder of the Flying Cloud Fortress couldn't stand it anymore. He stepped forward and scolded. I'll deal with him. I can't let him ruin our plan. The sky-bearing fortress can't hold on much longer. It won't be long before the sky-bearing fortress is completely destroyed and become a name in history. Whoever dares to stop me, I'll kill them. As he spoke, his entire body flew out in an instant, disappearing into the crowd of blood demons in an instant. Young Master Yang just watched proudly. He didn't have the slightest intention to move, as if these battles couldn't affect him at all. Yi Shiwen unleashed his invincible might and attacked another blood demon at the peak of the Myth Realm. It went smoothly as usual. Those ordinary blood demons couldn't even break through his defense. They screamed and exploded into blood chi, which was absorbed by him. World-shattering saber. He immediately grabbed the emergence immortal exterminating saber and slashed downwards. A terrifying force pierced through the sky and swept across. That blood demon at the peak of the Myth Realm didn't even have time to react before he was killed by Yi Shiwen's saber. He didn't even have time to show his strength. In the sky-bearing fortress, everyone was a little desperate. However, when they saw how powerful Yi Shiwen was, they regained their confidence. If they could survive, why would they want to die? Jin Buhuan watched as Yi Shiwen killed another blood demon at the peak of the Myth Realm. He had already killed several blood demons at the peak of the Myth Realm. It was as if these powerful blood demons at the peak of the Myth Realm, who could summon the wind and summon the rain, were like pieces of paper in front of him. They couldn't even withstand a single blow from him. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed such a ridiculous thing if someone else had told him about it. They had made the decision to make Yi Shiwen the castle lord in a moment of desperation because they had no other choice. But now, they had completely surrendered to Yi Shiwen's strength. The benefits of having such a tyrannical expert as their personal guard were self-evident. Yi Shiwen had just beheaded this blood demon at the peak of the Myth Realm, and had just absorbed the blood essence and transformed it into real elemental energy when the void suddenly shook. The violent fluctuations were like the surface of the water, and they suddenly began to tremble. Whoosh! At this moment, the sky was torn apart like a scroll. Immediately after, a stream of chaotic chi turned into a sword chi and blasted down. It wanted to kill Yi Shiwen at the most critical moment. Bang! This sword chi blasted directly on Yi Shiwen's body and blasted on the 5 Emperor's battle armor on his body. It shook him and made him take a few steps back. However, it didn't hurt him. Which scoundrel are you? Show yourself? Yi Shiwen didn't wait for his footing to stabilize and directly attacked. Soul-crushing blood claw. 5 incomparably huge cracks were torn open. They grew bigger and bigger, instantly tearing the space apart. The chaotic sword chi was also directly crushed, revealing the figure of the great elder of the flying cloud castle. He held the 8-tribe celestial flag in his hand and waved it directly. Hundreds of streams of chaotic chi were directly waved by him. They turned into sword chi and blasted towards Yi Shiwen. This is the 8-tribe celestial flag. Are you the great elder of the flying cloud castle? As expected, this matter has something to do with your flying cloud castle. Yi Shiwen's eyesight was so good that he figured everything out almost instantly. He also guessed the identity of the person in front of him. This person should be the great elder who controlled the entire flying cloud castle. It was said that the great elder of the flying cloud castle was truly at the peak of the mythical realm. He was only half a step away from proving his Tao. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't easily come out. He would always be in a state of closed-door training to comprehend the supreme path and prove his Tao. It seemed that he was indeed very powerful. They were both 8-tribe celestial flag. However, the power of the 8-tribe celestial flag in the hands of the flying cloud castle's 8th elder and Yi Shiwen's 8th elder were worlds apart. The power could even be said to be incomparable. However, Yi Shiwen wasn't shocked. Instead, he was delighted. He directly grabbed it with his big hand. Ah, I've searched far and wide, only to find it by chance. I was just thinking about how to deal with the mastermind behind this blood demon tide. And you popped up. If you don't want to die, tell me what you've done. Chapter 2188. When the hundreds of sword chi of chaos touched Yi Shiwen's hand, they directly blasted into the divinity on the surface of his palm, creating a series of clanging sounds. However, they could not break through his defense. How is this possible? His body is such a strong defense. The great elder of the flying cloud castle was horrified when he saw this. He was very clear about the power of his sword chi of chaos. Moreover, it was released with the help of the 8th division celestial flag. If an ordinary cultivator at the 9th heaven of Paoang realm was hit by it, he would be seriously injured on the spot. Judging from Yi Shiwen's performance, he naturally would not have such a foolish idea. However, he did not even manage to break through Yi Shiwen's defense, which was completely beyond his expectations. Yi Shiwen directly clenched his 5 fingers into a fist. The sword chi of chaos that was still raging in his hand was directly crushed by him. With a loud bang, it turned into energy all over the sky. However, it could not hurt Yi Shiwen at all. He looked at the great elder of the flying cloud castle. The power of the sword chi of chaos was indeed good. If it were 2 years ago, he would definitely use the demon beckoning banner to resist it. However, his current strength was far from what it was 2 years ago. It was almost like he had improved several times. He could almost resist it with his bare hands. It was already very difficult for the sword chi of chaos to break through his defense. You'd better surrender obediently. Tell me honestly what method you've used to command these blood demons to act as your vanguard. Yi Shiwen suddenly rushed to the front of the great elder of the flying cloud castle with a schwab sound. Damn human, you underestimate me too much. Yi Shiwen directly rushed over to kill him. It was obvious that he did not take him seriously. He did not even care what kind of reaction he would have. He was immediately enraged. This was a great humiliation. He let out a long roar, and the 8th divisional celestial banner in his hand suddenly swept out. Countless streams of chaotic chi spread out from it, turning into chaotic chi that filled the sky and directly spread out. Then, these chi of chaos condensed in the sky and turned into an incomparably huge sword chi of chaos. It directly blasted down towards Yi Shiwen. This sword chi of chaos itself was condensed from many sword chi of chaos. In terms of power, it was unknown how much more tyrannical it was than those scattered sword chi of chaos. He was determined to kill Yi Shiwen. The power of chaos, eternal. He roared, wanting to thoroughly defeat Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen wasn't afraid in the face of the chaotic qi that was sweeping across the sky. He flipped his palm, and a seal appeared on his palm. It was the Hantan seal. His palm directly covered it, and it was as if a mountain had rolled over and crashed down. He used the mountain quaking seal to resist the chaotic sword qi. Boom! The incomparably huge chaotic sword qi directly blasted into the Hantan seal, shattering inch by inch. It was simply unable to withstand the might of the Hantan seal. Now, Yi Shiwen had already cultivated the overturning sky seal to the most perfect level. This was a complete god-level martial technique. Compared to this martial technique, adjudication claw was nothing. Yi Shiwen's strength was even stronger when he used the overturning sky seal than when he used the adjudication claw. What? How is that possible? Even an elite at the peak of the myth realm would be instantly injured or even killed if they don't defend against it. The great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was a little panicked at this time. He was confident that he could at least contend against Yi Shiwen. But now, the great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle was panicking. Only now did he realize how wrong he was previously. The two of them were not on the same level at all. In the distance, the experts of the Flying Cloud Castle who had been paying attention to this side were suddenly dumbfounded. The great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle's tyrannical power that could seriously injure an elite at the peak of the myth realm did not have any effect at all. Yi Shiwen easily resolved the attacks. How could this be? He's not even injured at all. He's simply too strong. What should we do? Is he really going to ruin our plans this time? Damn it. Damn it. It seems that there's really no way to contend with him unless young Master Yang is willing to take action. This move of Yi Shiwen's had completely destroyed the Great Elder's primal chaos sword energy. After that, his entire body was sent flying by the impact. After Yi Shiwen sent the Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle flying, he was not in a hurry to chase after him. This was all under his control. If the Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle wanted to escape, he would have to go through him. Therefore, Yi Shiwen was not in a hurry. I let this 8th Division Celestial Flag escape previously. Now you've sent it to me again. Yi Shiwen sneered. If the people of the Flying Cloud Castle had not taken the initiative to come to Qiao Xin, he really would not have the time to deal with the Flying Cloud Castle in such a short time. Now, he could deal with them all at once. As long as he devoured the 8th Division Celestial Flag, his demon summoning banner would truly be able to complete its god rules and become a divine tool again. When that time came, he would be able to protect himself even if he encountered a deity. What was there to be afraid of? Damn it. Are you going to ruin our plans? Then you'll definitely die without a burial place. The Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle's face turned pale. He barely mobilized all his power to calm the surging qi and blood in his body. At this time, he had completely understood that he was not a match for Yi Shiwen. However, he did not panic because he still had young Master Yang behind him, and young Master Yang had such a colossus behind him. What was there for him to be afraid of? Die without a burial place? Haha, a place that can bury me doesn't exist in this world. Yi Shiwen laughed loudly. I know you want to buy time to heal your injuries, but it's useless. The gap between you and me is too big. Even if you heal your injuries, you can't possibly be a match for me. Now, you better tell me what method you use to make these blood beasts obey your orders. I'm also a little curious. I think it's better that you don't know. If you know, I think you'll immediately kneel down. The Great Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle's face stiffened. Yi Shiwen had seen through his plan. However, at this time, he had no other way out. I'd like to see who's standing behind you to the extent that I'm about to kneel down just by hearing your name. Yi Shiwen could not help but sneer. Since you're not willing to tell me, don't blame me for being impolite. Originally, I thought you were a promising talent and wanted to subdue you. Now it seems that you're just stubborn. But it doesn't matter. I don't care what method you have. As long as I kill all of you, this blood demon tide should be over. Yi Shiwen didn't bother to say anything to them. He only had one method. However, it was also the simplest method. He had to cut through the Gordian not quickly. As long as the experts of the Flying Cloud Castle died, the blood demon tide would naturally come to an end. It didn't matter what method he used. The premise was that the people were still alive and able to control the blood demon. He had already faintly felt that behind the blood demon tide, some powerful experts of the myth realm were peeping. They should be the people of the Flying Cloud Castle. He had such confidence that he could ignore all the conspiracies and tricks. The rules did not matter at all. You? With just you? Huh? The great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle suddenly burst into laughter. Can I? Then give it a try. Yishuan did not say much to him. Immediately, the emergent's immortal exterminating saber appeared in his hand. He had lost all his patience. Originally, he wanted to subdue the Flying Cloud Castle. In that case, his strength would more than double out of thin air and lay a good foundation for building a city and fighting for hegemony in the future. As for whether they were willing to be subdued or not, it did not matter to him at all. As long as his strength continued to increase, even if these people had any ulterior motives, they would not dare to rebel. In that case, it would not make any difference. Most importantly, he did not have that much time to waste. World Breaker Saber Break! He slashed with his saber. Countless saber auras gushed out from the long saber. They were mighty and majestic, forming a long saber river that crushed everything in its way. It directly blasted towards the great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. The great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle immediately turned pale with fright. He hurriedly retreated while constantly waving the 8-tribe celestial flag and blasted out chaotic sword auras to resist Yi Shiwen's sword aura. Many blood demons were also within the attack range of the World Breaker Saber. In an instant, all of them screamed and evaporated into a cloud of blood mist, which was absorbed by Yi Shiwen. The chaotic sword auras blasted out by the great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle could not stop Yi Shiwen's World Breaker Saber at all. They were directly smashed into pieces. Yi Shiwen's speed was getting faster and faster as he slashed down vertically. Bang! With an incomparably loud roar, a huge mushroom cloud rose from the place where Yi Shiwen slashed the great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. It instantly turned into a sky full of airwaves, covering everything and destroying everything. Then a figure was seen flying out. It was the great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. At the critical moment, he wrapped his body with the 8 tribes' celestial flag, which prevented him from being smashed by Yi Shiwen's saber. Even so, with the protection of the 8 tribes' celestial flag, he was still severely injured on the spot. He flew out and crashed into countless blood demons. After that, he crashed into a mountain peak and smashed more than half of the mountain peak. Seeing this, Yi Shiwen was too lazy to talk nonsense. He took a step forward and came directly in front of the great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle. He directly slashed down with his saber, intending to eradicate this scourge completely. Kid, you're very arrogant. But don't even think about being arrogant with me here. At this moment, an arrogant voice descended from the sky. Accompanying this voice was a shocking sound sword, which directly blasted through the vast sky. It was invisible and colorless, and had already blasted in front of Yi Shiwen in a flash. Sound wave attack. Yi Shiwen slightly leaned sideways, and this earth-shattering sound sword brushed past his body. However, his hand didn't slow down at all. He chopped off the head of the great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle with his blade. His spirit was completely annihilated. The 8 tribes celestial flag did not escape this time, and was easily obtained by him. Chapter 2189. How dare you kill someone right under my nose? The voice was shocked and angry. Then, young Master Yang came over in an escape light. So what if I killed him? Yi Shiwen looked at young Master Yang. The blood demon tied this time is probably related to you. Yi Shiwen's eyes were sharp. The strength of the great elder of the Flying Cloud Fortress could be said to be the best in the Flying Cloud Fortress. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to sit firmly in the position of the great elder of the Flying Cloud Fortress. Although it was in chronological order, it was also related to strength. The person who could sit firmly in the position of the great elder must be the best among the strong. However, the strength of this young Master Yang was even more tyrannical than the great elder of the flying cloud fortress. This was already abnormal. Combined with the fact that the flying cloud fortress suddenly had the ability to command a large number of blood demons to attack the city, the answer was obvious. His brain worked so fast that it was even more tyrannical than any supercomputer. In an instant, he had calculated countless possibilities and eliminated all of them. This allowed him to hit the nail on the head and point out the essence of the truth. "So what if it's me?" said young Master Yang coldly. "Then it's simple. As long as you die, the blood demon tide will end," said Yi Shiwen as his eyes lit up. "Ha! That's ridiculous. I think you've really lost your mind. How dare you try to kill me?" Young Master Yang was exasperated. Since he was born, he was already of the noblest bloodline. Relying on his father's love, no one had ever dared to kill him before. The great elder of the Flying Cloud Fortress had always been a man of his word in the Flying Cloud Fortress. In front of him, young Master Yang was like a dog who didn't dare to speak carelessly. "So what if I kill you?" Yi Shuin Shua transformed into a golden light and rushed forward. It was unknown when a long sword had appeared in his hand, and he directly chopped down towards young Master Yang. Young Master Yang was suddenly shocked. That shocking killing intent actually caused all the pores on his body to close in fear. It was as if he had fallen into an ice cave in an instant. That sharp sword chi directly forced him to the point that his heart almost stopped beating completely. He only saw Yi Shiwen's figure leaping out of the void. He didn't know when the long sword had already pounced on him. It was as if the Milky Way had directly slashed down. The majestic sword Dao laws had already swept everything away. There was no need for any words to slash through everything. "Who do you think you are? How dare you compare yourself to me?" Young Master Yang was immediately enraged. He was actually forced to this extent. He roared again and directly used his strongest martial arts. A hand slapped down, and suddenly the sky collapsed and the earth caved in. Heaven-burying hand. His big hand smashed down as if it could bury the sky. It was an extremely high-level, deity-level martial art. Any one of his 5 fingers could severely injure an existence at the pinnacle of the Paoang state. Countless strange laws and talismans revolved around his 5 fingers. Bang! The huge hand and the sword aura collided directly, forming a monstrous wave that annihilated a large number of the nearby blood demons. They were blown up right away. This young Master Yang was indeed very strong. He was even more tyrannical than the great elder of the Flying Cloud Fortress. The power of his entire body had almost reached an upper limit, a peak. Yi Shiwen even felt a familiar aura from this young Master Yang. It was similar to Yi Shukong's aura. Back then, the Sea Emperor also had a similar aura. Countless thoughts suddenly emerged in his mind. Could this person be the son of God? If this is the case, then his background is really not small. But after thinking about it, it seems that it is not strange here. In the depths of the blood prison, there are Dao-proving level experts. These Dao-proving level experts are not pure in heart and mind. It is normal for them to leave behind children. This was not uncommon in the mythological era. There were even many powerful sons of God who were born as demigods with unimaginable talent and strength. But he did not take it to heart. Although young Master Yang was tyrannical, there was still a huge gap compared to him. The only thing to worry about was the powerful existence behind young Master Yang. But this thought only rose slightly before it was suppressed by him. There was nothing more to say now. Even if he advanced further, he would have the power to protect himself even against Dao-proving level experts. There was nothing to be afraid of at all. Yi Shiwen grabbed with his big hand, and the golden sword key condensed into a golden long sword. The golden sword key flowed on the body of the sword, and under his direct control, it turned into a terrifying energy frenzy, destroying everything and bombarding towards young Master Yang. Young Master Yang's face suddenly changed. He felt a terrifying aura from this sword. He retreated again and again. He could not help but lament in his heart. How can this human be so strong? He is only at the 7th level of Paoang realm, and he is already this strong. When he breaks into the peak of the mythological era, no one will be able to control him. What was more terrifying was that he finally realized that Yi Shiwen did not use his full strength just now. That was why he felt that he could resist. Now that Yi Shiwen had fully displayed his strength, it gave him an extremely terrifying feeling. Damn it, I'm going all out. He let out a furious roar as his hands turned into the sky. Countless laws and Taoist rhymes leaked out from his hands, destroying everything in their path. This was an extremely high-level cultivation technique. No attack could touch his body, and it could completely destroy everything. But Yi Shiwen was expressionless. He directly slashed down with the long sword in his hand. Boom! The combat power of the peak of the mythological era burst out in an instant. It even directly exploded the sky, possessing some of the immortal light of the gods. Yi Shiwen's sword light broke through the buried heaven's hand in an instant. It broke through all of young Master Yang's defenses and tore open a huge bloody scar on his body. His entire body had almost been chopped in half. He would have died if he hadn't resisted at the critical moment. Roar! Young Master Yang was forced to this point, and he roared again and again. His noble body had never been injured to such an extent. He was almost forced into a dead end. He quickly retreated, looked at Yi Shiwen with resentment, and was about to escape. How could he dare to stay and face such a fierce god? You want to leave? I think it's too easy for you. Yi Shiwen sneered, and the emergence immortal exterminating saber suddenly appeared in his hand. Broken World Saber. A terrifying saber aura swept up and instantly surged out, destroying everything. It directly chased after young Master Yang. Damn human, if you dare to kill me, my father will definitely not let you go. As he screamed, the saber aura caught up with him. His whole body suddenly exploded on the spot, turning into countless blood essences, which contained many talismans formed by the divine Tao laws, attached to the flesh. Yi Shiwen grabbed it in his hand. The value of a natural-born demigod's blood essence was simply needless to say. The energy contained in it was a trivial matter. The real essence lay in the great way that belonged to the gods that were engraved in the flesh. They were different from the acquired demigods who had cultivated to the demigod realm. These innate demigods were the children of God from the moment they were born. Their flesh and blood contained the great Tao of God. This made them different from ordinary people. Whether it was cultivation or other things, they had a talent that far surpassed others. There were too many great Tao contained in them. This was undoubtedly crucial for Yi Shiwen at present. In his current situation, it would still take a long time to cultivate to the 9th level of Paong realm, not to mention Tao validation. However, time waits for no man, and his enemies were getting stronger and stronger. If the Abyssal Demon Lord confirmed his Tao and returned, it would be a calamity for him. Although he didn't know what level the Abyssal Demon Lord had reached, he had to be fully prepared. He had to have a trump card that could contend against a Tao-confirming expert. This idea was crazy for others. A demigod actually dared to seek a way to compete with the gods. His comprehension had just reached the peak of the mythical realm, which allowed him to burst out the combat power of the peak of the mythical realm. However, if he wanted to compete with the masters of Tao validation, his comprehension must at least reach the level of Tao validation. However, how could it be so easy to reach the Tao-confirming realm? Otherwise, this threshold wouldn't have been so difficult for countless geniuses throughout the ages. Countless geniuses were stuck at this threshold until their deaths, and in the end, they turned into dust. The difficulty of this could be imagined. It was even better to cultivate to the peak of Paong realm first, and then seek the opportunity of Tao validation. However, he had a faint feeling that a disaster was coming, and he knew that he did not have that much time. This feeling made him involuntarily speed up his cultivation. Now that he had the divine path law contained in the flesh and blood of the Son of God, it made it possible for him to have a further breakthrough in his combat power. Although it was impossible for him to prove Tao validation in a short time, and he might not be able to prove Tao validation in his lifetime, it was not necessary to prove Tao validation in order to have the strength of Tao validation. As long as he understood the operating rules of the divine path law, It was not impossible for him to have the strength to compete with the masters of Tao validation in a short time. Although there were few people who had such tyrannical strength since ancient times, it was not that they did not exist. Now, he planned to go against the heavens and do something that even the outstanding people of ancient times could not do. Of course, this would require a huge amount of energy, but at least he had a direction. If it was not for the divine path law and the blood and essence, he would not even have a direction. At least there was hope. The 8-component heaven flag appeared on his palm, and then he directly put it into the Tianyuan mirror. This was also one of the important methods and trump cards that he would use to compete with the masters of Tao validation. Although he had not verified it, he was very confident. Although he might have offended an extremely powerful master of Tao validation, he felt that it was all worth it. As long as his combat power broke through again, the masters of Tao validation would not be able to do anything to him. Chapter 2190. Coupled with the corpse of the wolf deity in his hands, he had greater confidence in breaking through the combat power of the deity level. Thinking of this, he only felt that his mood suddenly became clear. He only felt that all the bones in his body had opened up. This was an indescribable feeling. After breaking through the obstacles in his heart, it made his vision more widened. He suddenly had a feeling of being enlightened. He knew that breaking through to the next realm was not a chasm, but it still needed time. He didn't have that time now. There were too many things that he needed to do at the moment. In front of him, there was a flute. It was suffused with divine power, spreading in circles. Yishuan grabbed the flute. It seemed as if the entire body of this flute was made of silver. Then, an astonishing divine power erupted from it. It transformed into an energy shock wave and spread out in all directions. It seemed as if it wanted to send Yishuan flying. "You still dare to struggle?" Yishuan shouted loudly and slowly closed his palms. He firmly pressed down on the eruption of divine might and directly grabbed the silver-white flute. "Who is it? How dare you peep at my martial instrument?" An incomparably loud roar came from the depths of the silver flute. Then, a terrifying figure leaped out of the silver flute. It directly spread out countless divine might, emitting countless divine light rays, which dyed the sky golden like a wheat field. It was a middle-aged man, wearing a golden divine robe, but his face couldn't be seen at all. The arrogant aura and the power emitted from his body made Yishuan easily judge that this middle-aged man should be a deity. Yishuan had seen deities before, but those were deities that had fallen or were in deep sleep. This one was undoubtedly a living deity. The power was not at the same level as the deities that Yishuan had encountered before. However, Yishuan wasn't the same as before. He couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. He immediately speculated that if young Master Yang was the son of God, then the remnant of this deity was likely to be young Master Yang's father. He was also a real deity that lived in this world. However, he was only slightly stunned, and then he laughed coldly and said, "I wouldn't say a single word and leave if your main body was here. You're just a soul core clone, yet you're trying to order me around? Arrogant! How dare you blaspheme the gods?" This incomparably powerful god suddenly became furious. He was only a remnant of the god. However, he was also a part of the god's body. So, he had naturally inherited that arrogance. He was a god, and Yishuan was only an ant even though he was a demigod. However, an ant had dared to be so rude to a god. Bang! Bang! This incomparably powerful god made his move. He transformed into a huge god's hand and slammed it down towards Yishuan. It seemed as if he wanted to blast him to death. That's the power of the gods. At this time, without young Master Yang's command, the blood demons broke free from his control and quickly scattered. Although they were usually brutal, they were not brainless. This exposed Yishuan and the powerful deity in the void to the experts of the soaring cloud castle and the sky-bearing castle. Everyone was stunned. They had never thought that it would actually be a god. These experts of the mythical realm were known as demigods. They were known as the group of people who were closest to the gods. So, they were more aware of how terrifying the gods were. Those below the Tao confirmation realm were all ants. This sentence was not false at all. In fact, the truth was even more despairing than this sentence. Even Jin Buhuan's face was a little pale at this time. Compared to the gods, they were too weak. It was too much to describe them as ants. However, Yi Shiwen was going to fight against a god. The gods weren't legends in the blood prison. They weren't fallen or dormant pushovers either. On the contrary, they were ridiculously tyrannical existences. In fact, they were living existences. Jin Buhuan could not help but smile bitterly. This new castle master seemed to have gone overboard. He really knew how to attract hatred. The people of the Flying Cloud Castle were even more scared. They were not scared because a wisp of the deity's spirit incarnation had appeared in the silver flute, but because Yi Shiwen had killed young Master Yang. They did not dare to imagine how terrible it would be if this matter were to break out. What kind of attack would they face from such a powerful existence? It's over. Young Master Yang is dead. I wonder how angry the victorious Sun City Lord will be. The wrath of a god. It's over. The foundation of the soaring cloud castle is finished. He must be crazy. Couldn't he feel that it was the son of God, a natural-born demigod? He actually dared to kill him. He must be crazy. But speaking of which, this young Master Yang is too weak. Didn't they say that these natural-born demigods are as strong as they want? Now it seems that he is just SOSO. The people of the soaring cloud castle suddenly burst into an uproar. They suddenly did not know where to go. The great elder of the soaring cloud castle was dead. Even the soaring cloud castle was about to be destroyed. They really did not know where to go. At this time, their only thought was to escape immediately. However, when their eyes turned towards Yi Shiwen, they firmly stared at him. They couldn't tear their eyes away. It was all because of this guy. If it weren't for him, they wouldn't be in such a miserable state. At this time, Yi Shiwen naturally did not know the thoughts of both sides. He was completely focused on this god. The city lord of victorious Sun City directly pressed down with his huge palm, causing the entire sky to shatter. Invincible divine might was everywhere. This was the burying heaven palm. The same move, but it was countless times more tyrannical than the one young Master Yang displayed. Good. Just in time. Let me test where my limit is. Yi Shiwen was not surprised. Instead, he was happy. The victorious Sun City Lord was a legendary god. His strength was unfathomable. And now, it was only a wisp of the remnant consciousness of the victorious Sun City Lord. Even if it was just a wisp of remnant consciousness, it was comparable to the real peak of the myth. Although the strength of the remnant consciousness of the victorious Sun City Lord was only a little stronger than that of young Master Yang, it was not by much. However, the same martial arts move was twice as powerful in the hands of the victorious Sun City Lord. At this moment, the understanding of martial arts of the victorious Sun City Lord was fully reflected. The surrounding spiritual energy was absorbed by him, and the surrounding laws were controlled by him. This allowed him to display combat power far beyond the peak of the myth with the power of the peak of the myth. This was similar to Yi Shiwen's. Therefore, Yi Shiwen was somewhat aggressive. Otherwise, even a peak of the myth like young Master Yang would not be a match for him at all. It was unknown how much space was shattered. A majestic force directly pressed down on Yi Shiwen. At this time, Yi Shiwen put his hands together and pinched a seal. It directly transformed into the overturning heaven seal and blasted towards the buried heaven hand. Boom! The entire sky suddenly shattered. The power produced by the collision between the huge palm and Yi Shiwen's overturning heaven seal directly caused the sky to collapse, revealing the chaos within. The tyrannical power made the faces of the experts of the myth turn pale all of a sudden. The victorious Sun City Lord relied on his profound attainments in martial arts to display power far beyond the peak of the myth with a flip of his hand. On the other hand, Yi Shiwen relied purely on his own strength to resist. After putting on the 5 Emperor's battle armor and integrating 3 martial arts incarnations, his overall strength showed a trend of rising in a straight line. Human, you won't understand. If you don't prove your Tao, you're just an ant in the end. Even if you integrate 3 martial arts incarnations, you can't possibly be a match for me. Although the victorious Sun City Lord was only a remnant consciousness, and his strength was far from being comparable to the main body, his vision was not bad. He could almost see the true source of Yi Shiwen's strength at a glance. 3 martial arts incarnations? You must be joking. Whether it was the experts of the Flying Cloud Castle or the Sky-Bearing Castle, when they heard the victorious Sun City Lord say this, they all felt that he was King kidding them. They were all favored by the heavens, and there were many who integrated 1 martial arts incarnation. However, there were very few who could integrate 2 martial arts incarnations at the same time. As for 3 martial arts incarnations, it was simply not something that a demigod could achieve. However, Yi Shiwen had done it. Everyone somewhat understood why Yi Shiwen was able to erupt with such an astonishing combat power. 3 martial arts incarnations. The power of the 3 main bodies were superimposed on his body. That terrifying power was enough to scare people to death. It was completely inestimable. In particular, the experts of the Flying Cloud Castle were completely shocked at this time. Although they were glad that they didn't die tragically like the great elder of the Flying Cloud Castle, when they heard that Yi Shiwen had integrated 3 martial arts incarnations at the same time, they felt a chill in their hearts. What kind of monster was this? The cultivation speed of these elite heroes should be one of the best in the world, but Yi Shiwen was actually able to surpass them. It was truly unimaginable. No wonder he is so powerful. If he can escape from the hands of the victorious Sun City Lord this time, I'm afraid he will instantly become famous in the world. Jin Buhuan said that he could escape from the hands of the victorious Sun City Lord. Naturally, it could not be a fake remnant consciousness. At this time, he also did not know whether his original proposal was right or wrong. This castle lord was really good at causing trouble. This was just the beginning, and he had already killed a son of God. Perhaps when the time came, even the gods would be furious. Needless to say, Yao Xingqing and the others were naturally his mortal enemies. He should have gotten rid of them, but at the same time, in addition to being troubled, his strength was indeed impeccable. In the myths, he was invincible, and even the peak of the myth was not his match. Chapter 2191. But this time, they had provoked a god. When they thought of this, they felt like fainting. What was the difference between provoking a god and seeking one's own death? Although they wanted to prove their Tao and become a member of the gods, the fear of the gods was deeply engraved in their hearts. Although you are not bad, you are still an ant who has not become a god. You can't be my opponent. The city lord of Xinjiang City was extremely confident. Although it was only a spirit incarnation, it was almost the strongest realm below the Tao. Like the great elder of Flying Cloud Castle, who was at the peak of the mythical realm, he could be killed on the spot. He could kill a mythical realm master with a single thought. As he walked, he was completely integrated with the world. Roar! He attacked. With a roar, the wind and clouds surged, and the laws between heaven and earth surged wildly, forming a huge tornado. If ordinary mythical realm masters were to be swept into it, they would immediately be crushed. These laws turned into a big hand and directly pressed down. Good, take my punch, human Tao fist. Yi Shiwen blasted out a punch, and the mighty power of the human Tao swept out directly, forcibly meeting the palm. Boom! The air condensed, and then a powerful force was released from it, collapsing the space in an instant. Yi Shiwen did not move, and his whole body was covered with golden divinity, directly removing this force. The city lord of Xinjiang City kept retreating a few steps before barely stopping. Although the city lord of Xinjiang City could borrow the power of the laws to put himself above the peak of the mythical realm, in the end, he was only a wisp of spirit. He did not even have a physical body, so how could he compete with Yi Shiwen's gilded tyrant form? But in general, it was still a tie. However, Yi Shiwen was still very surprised. It was just a wisp of the spirit of a god, but it could burst out power above the peak of the mythical realm. It was really powerful. What kind of strength was this? It should be known that Yi Shiwen had integrated 3 martial Dao incarnations, in addition to the state of the 5 emperors. It could be said that it was enough to sweep away almost all the peak of the mythical realm. But the city lord of Xinjiang City could actually be on par with him. This strength was unfathomable. But then he felt relieved. In the past, he also relied on the power of the god's divine thoughts to temporarily contend with the peak of the mythical realm. At that time, his cultivation level was far below the city lord of Victoria's Sun City. Yet he was able to display such combat power. Looking at it now, it was no longer strange. Bang! 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 The battle between the two sides was intense. Especially since he had condensed his 3rd martial arts incarnation, he couldn't find a suitable opponent. Yi Shiwen's battle was incisive. After cultivating to this level, he did not stop improving. On the contrary, he had an even stronger desire for the next level. Dao corroboration was an extremely close realm. That would be his future opponent. Now it could be considered a warm-up. He couldn't even deal with the incarnation of a god, let alone the god himself. Fear flashed in the eyes of the city lord of Xinjiang City. In all these years, there was only one person who could contend with him as a demigod. He held the silver flute in his hand. Powerful sound waves were constantly blasting through the vast sky and bombarding towards Yi Shiwen. Bang! Both sides fiercely clapped and separated in the void. Yi Shiwen didn't move. His body was tyrannical. Even such a battle couldn't shake him. Almost in the next moment, his counterattack followed like a shadow. Although this battle was enjoyable, the real elemental energy in his body couldn't continue to support such a battle. The consumption was too great. His whole body directly bloomed with endless murderous intention. The murderous aura was endless, and he directly attacked. Soul-breaking blood claw. 5 huge cracks directly blasted out, like the autumn water in the sky, tearing everything apart. Boom! With one claw, all the defenses of the city lord of Victoria's Sun City were smashed, and his whole body was blasted out. His overall strength couldn't be compared with Yi Shiwen. He could borrow the power of heaven and earth to display a combat power far beyond ordinary, but his own strength was still far inferior to Yi Shiwen. This was determined by the essence. He flew in the air, quickly adjusted his position, and desperately continued to use real elemental energy. He wanted to take the opportunity to launch a wave of counterattack. It had been a long time since he fought such a battle, not to mention being forced to such an extent by a demigod. It was simply a shame. Even if it was just a little bit of divine sense, he couldn't allow himself to fail. At this moment, he was like an immortal martial god. How could Yi Shiwen give him such a chance? He had to finish the battle as soon as possible and get out of it. In his body, the mysterious space was spinning rapidly. Countless information was constantly being analyzed, and then directly imprinted into his body. Suddenly, his eyes suddenly opened, and he only felt a powerful force melting in his body. Human Dao Fist. This punch of his directly blasted out, directly shattering the sky. Most importantly, the human Dao Fist he blasted out was not only the original surging mortal world, but also directly surged out a world. This was the world of the human clan. This meant that the human Dao Fist had finally entered the next level. In the fierce battle just now, his understanding of the human Dao Fist had also rapidly improved. It was in such an extreme battle that his understanding could have such earth-shaking changes. The sudden upgrade of the human Dao Fist caught the city lord of Victoria's Sun City unprepared. He staggered on the spot and was suppressed by the human Dao world. He was seriously injured on the spot. Originally, with the divine sense of a deity, coupled with his understanding of martial arts, he could easily blow up ordinary demigods. But unfortunately, he encountered a freak like Yi Shiwen. At the most critical moment, Yi Shiwen's human Dao Fist had improved again, and his strength had increased by a level. Boom! The city lord of Victoria's Sun City screamed on the spot and directly exploded. And the silver flute in his hand also fell into Yi Shiwen's hand. Yi Shiwen looked at the silver flute that had finally fallen into his hands after a lot of trouble. He directly probed it with his divine sense, and suddenly a lot of information about the silver flute was instantly grasped by him. Nine Heaven's soul-sucking flute. This was the name of this silver flute. As long as it was activated properly, it could even control endless lives, just like how young Master Yang controlled those blood demons to attack the city. Even if they were unwilling, they would still be controlled and soul-sucked. If used properly, this was a very powerful flawed artifact. At this time, the people from the Flying Cloud Castle were already scared silly. Originally, they thought that the city lord of Victoria's Sun City had appeared in person. Even if it was just a wisp of divine sense, it would be enough to take down Yi Shiwen, so they did not scatter and escape in all directions. But who knew that the city lord of Victoria's Sun City was not a match for Yi Shiwen at all, and was easily blown up by him. Now, they were completely exposed in front of Yi Shiwen for a while. Almost immediately, they broke away from the initial shock. They wanted to escape, but Yi Shiwen had already arrived in front of them without them knowing when he had arrived. Fight him to the death. These people from the Flying Cloud Castle were already frightened by Yi Shiwen, but there was nothing they could do. In the face of Yi Shiwen, who could easily blow up the incarnation of a deity, they almost had no power to fight back. Although they did not have the power to fight back, it was impossible for them to sit and wait for death. But this time, Yi Shiwen had no intention of killing them. The Great Elder and the Second Elder of the Flying Cloud Castle had been destroyed by him one after another, in addition to the several masters at the peak of the mythical realm that he had killed before. Now, there were only 7 masters at the 9th level of Powong realm left in the Flying Cloud Castle, which was not as good as the Sky-bearing Castle. They could not pose any threat to him at all. With the precedent set by the Sky-bearing Castle, he also had the idea of taking in the Flying Cloud Castle. With the power of the Sky-bearing Castle and the Flying Cloud Castle, it was enough to dominate this area. Moreover, he had 100% offended a deity. The deity might not know it now, but for him, there was another pressure. He had to grow before the deity could react. He did not have the time to train his confidants one by one. Directly annexing them was the best way. He took a step forward and said, "Surrender to me or die." These mythical masters of the Flying Cloud Castle looked at each other. Yi Shiwen had just offended a deity to death. When the time came, it was very likely that he would be attacked by another deity. No matter what, they did not want to get involved. But now, what other way was there? I'm willing to surrender. These people did not think for long. One by one, they knelt down. The attack of the deity might be a matter for the future, but if they were not willing to surrender now, the only outcome would be death. Yi Shiwen nodded with satisfaction. At least they knew what was good for them. Each of them planted a blood god in their bodies. If they dared to betray him, they would explode on the spot. Yi Mo himself was a great demon. He had once followed a powerful devil king. With Yi Mo following him all year round, how could Yi Shiwen not know anything about these methods of controlling people? The blood god was an extremely brilliant method. It was said that it was once created by a peerless master. When it was at its most powerful, it would form a sea of blood. As long as the sea of blood was not destroyed, he would not die. If they did not betray him, the blood god would parasitize their bodies and stimulate the growth of their skills. However, once they turned the tables, the blood god would explode instantly. Even their skills would be absorbed by the blood god. Finally, it would return to Yi Shiwen's body and increase his skills, becoming nourishment for Yi Shiwen. Life and death were only a matter of a thought. Yi Shiwen knew many such methods, but he did not have many opportunities to use them. Chapter 2192. These experts of the Flying Cloud Castle dared to be angry, but they didn't dare to say anything. They had no choice but to bow their heads under the eaves. However, Yi Shiwen didn't care. With the blood god on their side, it didn't matter whether they were convinced or not. Their life and death were in his hands. Even if they went to find the gods, they would not be able to solve the blood god's son. Therefore, he did not have to worry at all. The experts from the Flying Cloud Castle were all here. As long as he subdued them, the rest would be a piece of cake. He mobilized these 2 fortresses so that the combat power of these 2 fortresses could be twisted into a rope. Then, Yi Shiwen sent the experts from the Flying Cloud Castle back to take over the Flying Cloud Castle, while he returned to the Sky-bearing Castle. In any case, the Sky-bearing Castle was closer to Yi Shiwen than the Flying Cloud Castle. The process of him subduing the Flying Cloud Castle also fell into the eyes of many experts from the Sky-bearing Castle. They looked at each other and did not know what to say. He easily subdued the Flying Cloud Castle, an old enemy that had been hostile for thousands of years. More importantly, the Sky-bearing Castle and the Flying Cloud Castle had been hostile for many years. Now that they had suddenly become allies, the relationship between them had suddenly become strange. They were not hostile, but they were definitely not friendly either. However, after seeing Yi Shiwen's means, they could not say much. In fact, it was also a good thing for them to have the protection of such a powerful castle master. Such a terrifying blood demon tide could almost be resisted by the fortresses, but Yi Shiwen was able to deal with it quickly and easily. No one could stop him. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would never believe that someone could achieve such a level. He did not seem like a human at all, although he could not be like the legendary gods, who could cover the sky with one hand and destroy the world as if it was a common thing. Now that the Flying Cloud Castle has also surrendered to us, they are two different systems. However, they do not dare to betray me. I may not be here often, so I will leave the matters of the two fortresses to you in the future. Yi Shiwen said to Jin Buhuan. Although he wanted to establish his own force and borrow the power of the Sky-bearing Castle and the Flying Cloud Castle, it did not mean that he wanted to personally intervene in these trivial matters. Otherwise, he would not be able to cultivate in the future. In this aspect, Jin Buhuan was indeed the best candidate. Jin Buhuan's eyes lit up when he heard this. In the past, he could at most manage the Sky-bearing Castle. Now, even the Flying Cloud Castle was under his control. Most importantly, unlike the original system of equal elders, with Yi Shiwen's authorization, he had suddenly become an existence that was second only to one and above all others. He was in charge of all the elders at the peak of the Paoang realm. Yes, Fort Master. Yi Shiwen nodded and said, I'm going to go into closed-door training now. You'll do your best to find Yao Xingqing, Jing Tianlei, and Jun Dingtian in the blood prison. He had only just condensed his Saber Dao incarnation. If not for this sudden battle, he would probably still be consolidating in seclusion. Moreover, after this battle, his human Dao fist had already reached the point of perfection, and it had become one of his trump cards. He needed time to consolidate it, and he also needed to replenish the energy of the three clones as soon as possible. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to endure the next intense battle. Anyway, there were still more than 2 months before the 5-year sentence. Most importantly, the next battle was about to begin in more than 2 months. Last time, he only broke into the top 100 before withdrawing. This time his goal was to become the champion. Only then could he truly enter the eyes of the higher-ups of the Hidden Valley and receive strong training. There was still some time before he could truly prove his Dao. If he could receive strong training, it would undoubtedly greatly shorten this time. Fort Master, if it's Jing Tianlei, I know that he actually has his own force in the blood prison. He has also built his own castle. However, it is closer to the center of the blood prison than the Flying Cloud Castle and the Sky-bearing Castle. We also retreated from the center of the blood prison to the edge because we could not survive there. Jin Buhuan could not help but say with some emotion, They actually have their own forces? Yi Shiwen was a little stunned. It seemed that he was already late. There were already many people ahead of him. It seemed that this was also the general trend. After he had truly proved his Dao, he would also join the fight for hegemony. Then, where is Jing Tianlei's castle? Yi Shiwen's eyes flashed with murderous intention. Cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots was the best way. In the void, even if he defeated Jing Tianlei and Yao Xingqing, he could not really do anything to them. Only by finding their real bodies in the blood prison and killing them could he solve all the problems once and for all. In the God Transformation Abyss, killing was punishable. However, it was different here. In the blood prison, no one cared about it. Even if someone wanted to interfere, there was no evidence at all. The heaven secrets here were chaotic. Even if a Tao confirmation expert wanted to calculate it, it would be impossible. Therefore, he was confident that even the Lord of Victoria's Sun City would not find anything wrong in a short period of time. By the time the Lord of Victoria's Sun City found out, he would probably have a huge improvement. Jin Buhuan immediately told Yi Shiwen the coordinates of Jing Tianlei's castle. Yi Shiwen looked at it. It was not very far away. It was only hundreds of millions of kilometers away from here. In short, he still had time to act before the battle began. After the battle began, his strength would be exposed. Jing Tianlei and Yao Xingqing were not fools. If they avoided the battle at that time, it would be a real big problem. He wanted to take advantage of the fact that they still did not know about it. He wanted to catch them off guard. However, Lord of Victoria's Sun City. Although the Lord of Victoria's Sun City might not be aware in a short period of time, it is inevitable that he will be aware after a long time. What should we do at that time? Should we temporarily withdraw from the blood prison and wait for the Lord of Victoria's Sun City to prove his Tao before coming back? Jin Buhuan said. Since his position had been determined, he would consider for Yi Shiwen wholeheartedly. Similarly, he was also considering for himself. He had also thought it through. Even if he offended the Lord of Victoria's Sun City, it was no big deal for him to leave the blood prison temporarily. Yi Shiwen's potential and strength were absolutely unprecedented. They were as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. Such a person had appeared very rarely in history. However, it had never been heard of a person who couldn't prove his Tao without dying prematurely. In his opinion, as long as Yi Shiwen did not die halfway, he would definitely prove his Tao in the future. The current temporary concession and tolerance were nothing at all. Don't worry, there is no need at all. When the time comes, I will also move the soaring cloud castle here. I will arrange a formation. Even if a deity comes personally, he will not be able to break it without fighting for hundreds of years. Yi Shiwen said confidently. The Ghost Heart Fire formation appeared in his mind. It was a formation used by the Lord of Darkness to suppress the evil spirits in his body and to protect himself. It was extremely powerful. As long as there was enough energy, even a deity would not be able to break through it easily. This also had the strength to compete with a master of Tao under special circumstances. He naturally could not supply the operation of the Ghost Heart Fire formation. However, what if he used the Bloodstone Mine? The Bloodstone energy in the Bloodstone Mine was endless. In a short period of time, even the Ghost Heart Fire formation could not completely consume it. Moreover, in addition to the Bloodstone Mine in the Soaring Cloud Castle, there were 2 Bloodstone Mines in the Soaring Cloud Castle. The Bloodstone reserves could be said to be very abundant. He did not have to be afraid at all. When the time came, he would have a way to advance or retreat. This was where his greatest confidence came from. Even if the Lord of Victoria's Sun City attacked aggressively, he did not have to worry at all. Not to mention hundreds of years, his strength would have earth-shaking changes in a few decades. At that time, it would be hard to say who would kill who. Jin Buhuan was a little curious. He did not know what formation Yi Shiwen was talking about. In this world, there were countless formations. However, there were not many that could compete with a deity with the strength of a demigod. He could be considered as an experienced and knowledgeable person. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Countless unprecedented formations were constantly flashing through his mind. However, it was impossible for him to know about them before Yi Shiwen revealed them. However, although he was curious, he did not dare to ask much. In that case, I will leave this place to you. Let the Soaring Cloud Castle move their fortress near the Soaring Sky Castle. In this way, they can protect each other when they are attacked. They can't take care of both the front and the back, said Yi Shiwen. As for the few Bloodstone Mines, wait for me to come back and capture them nearby. Otherwise, they will be far away. Jin Buhuan's eyes widened when he heard this. Capturing the Bloodstone Mines could not be done by relying on powerful strength. This was because the Bloodstone Mines had been firmly integrated with the Earth vein. It was easy to mine them bit by bit. However, if one wanted to capture the Bloodstone Mines, they would have to contend with the power of the entire Earth vein. This was impossible unless one reached Tao validation. Otherwise, the soaring sky castle would have captured the Bloodstone mines a long time ago. However, it was impossible to do so. The vicinity of the Bloodstone mines was easy to attack and difficult to defend. This caused the distance between the soaring sky castle and the Bloodstone mines that belonged to the soaring sky castle. However, Yi Shiwen actually said that he had a way. This was simply inhuman. This was a method that only deities could have. However, since Yi Shiwen had said so, Jin Buhuan believed that he definitely had a way. Otherwise, he would not have spoken without thinking. He was immediately overjoyed. If there was a Bloodstone mine under the soaring sky castle that continuously emitted powerful essence, he would naturally achieve twice the results with half the effort while cultivating here. However, all of this would have to wait until Yi Shiwen returned. I will leave the trivial matters to you. In addition, don't slack off in finding out the existence of Yao Xingqing and Jun Dingtian. After Yi Shiwen finished giving instructions, he immediately flew towards the depths of the blood prison. Chapter 2193. The boundless blood purgatory was a sea of blood. Far off in the distance was a sea of blood, making it impossible to see anything clearly. Countless ferocious blood demons traversed through the mountains and valleys, and all sorts of terrifying sounds echoed out. Even the places where powerful martial artists gathered were like stars in the night sky, scattered throughout the boundless blood purgatory. A golden figure streaked through the air. His powerful chi and blood attracted the attention of many blood demons. But when they sensed how powerful he was, they quietly retreated, not daring to approach him. Yi Shiwen flew for a full day and night, flying at full speed. Only then did he reach the depths of the blood purgatory. The deeper he went, the more powerful the blood demons he encountered became. After entering the depths of the blood purgatory, none of the blood demons he encountered were below the deity transformation level. They were all at least at the deity transformation level. He even sensed some extremely powerful blood demon patriarchs lying dormant in the mountains and valleys, ready to devour the heavens at any moment. They were all just half a step away from proving their Tao. Ordinary blood demons couldn't keep up with his speed, even if they didn't have eyes. Before long, he had left them in the dust. Following the coordinates provided by Buhuan Gold, Yi Shiwen flew all the way through the heavens until he finally arrived at a fortress. This fortress had been built by none other than Jing Tianlei. From a distance, he could see numerous powerful auras piercing through the air, fusing with the surroundings. All of them were deity transformation experts. This fortress was much stronger than Soaring Cloud Fortress and Sky-Piercing Fortress. There were no less than 20 peak myth realm beings in it. Clearly, they were all Jing Tianlei's subordinates. It was no wonder he was so arrogant. He had so many powerful fighters under his command. He did have the right to be so arrogant. If it had been before, Chu Qingxi wouldn't have been able to do anything to Jing Tianlei, who was hiding in the fortress. But things were different now. Jing Tianlei's strength had long since turned the heavens and the earth upside down. Compared to 5 years ago, he couldn't even be mentioned in the same breath. However, he wasn't in a hurry to attack. With a flip of his palm, the 9 firmament's soul-sucking flute appeared in his hand. He wanted to test out the power of the flute. Because of that, he wasn't in a hurry to attack. When he reappeared, he was already in a tribe of blood demons. The leader of the tribe was also a powerful elite at the peak of Myth Realm. He led many blood demons. "Who are you? How dare you intrude into my tribe?" The blood demon leader roared angrily, and a huge bloody claw stretched out. Countless blood energies formed a bloody net, intertwined into an inescapable net, and grabbed towards Yi Shiwen. Not only this blood demon leader, but many mythical-level blood demons also roared and appeared one after another. A domain was formed in the entire tribe, and a powerful force was mobilized, turning into a monstrous power that charged towards Yi Shiwen. However, Yi Shiwen was not afraid at all. In the face of the martial arts torrent, he directly formed a big hand and grabbed all the martial arts torrents in an instant. Yi Shiwen himself tore apart a golden light and suddenly appeared in front of the leader of the blood demons. He was like an invincible devil. With every step he took, the aura of his whole body would become more and more tyrannical. Some of the weaker blood demons were directly blown away, unable to get close to Yishuan at all. Hum! The melodious sound of a flute rang out, forming shock waves that directly rushed into the ears of these blood demons. Suddenly, these blood demons became confused, and only the most primitive instinct to fight was left. They obediently knelt at Yishuan's feet. The leader of the blood demons only lasted for a short while before he knelt under the nine heavens soul-sucking flute. The power of this ninth heaven soul-sucking flute was simply terrifying. It was definitely a rare sight. It was just a defective artifact, but it could control these mythical blood demons as if it was a common occurrence. If it could be completely repaired, even gods would find it difficult to escape such control. It was really a good treasure. Yishuan revealed a satisfied smile. It was really a good treasure. Young Master Yang had racked his brains to only be able to control the leader of the blood demons, and then use the leader of the blood demons to attack the city, forming a tide of blood demons. However, Yishuan was different. His skills were more than 10 times stronger than young Master Yang's, and he could easily control all the blood demons. In this way, once the leader escaped, the remaining blood demons would not fall and scatter. And this was just the beginning. With the same method, Yishuan very quickly controlled dozens of blood demon tribes within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles. In the depths of the blood prison, the density of the blood demon tribes was also far higher than in the periphery. The only drawback was that to control these blood demons, he had to constantly maintain the operation of the nine heavens soul-sucking flute. At most, he could only control this many blood demon tribes. For this, he had specially burned 3 pieces of celestial source gas, which was a huge price to pay. However, he did not care. As long as he could kill Jing Tianlei, everything would be worth it. The mighty tide of blood demons instantly rushed toward Jing Tianlei's fortress. Monstrous blood aura surged out, forming a slow blood cloud that covered the sky within a radius of tens of thousands of miles. From afar, it was incomparably terrifying. Inside the blood cloud, countless powerful blood demons were constantly roaring and bellowing. On the ground, there were also countless powerful mythical-level blood demons roaring and rushing toward Jing Tianlei. These blood demons had automatically cultivated to the mythical level. Compared to the experts who cultivated various martial arts, they were far inferior. However, they had the advantage in numbers. Tide of blood demons. Quick, defend! Almost in the next moment, someone in the fortress noticed the countless blood demons rushing toward them. In the depths of the blood prison, tides of blood demons were far too frequent. They had long since gotten used to it. The formations in the fortress were resurrected one after another. Powerful torrents of energy swept out, directly wiping out many blood demons on the spot. However, even more formations had just been resurrected when they were taken over by the swarm of blood demons that had swarmed over. There were too many blood demons, and they were too strong. Among them, there was no lack of patriarchs who were at the peak of the mythical level. Patriarchs, who were usually hiding in the rear, seemed to have taken some kind of drug. This time, they charged forward in a frenzy. Although there were many spell formations, there was no way they could withstand the onslaught of so many blood demons. The first defensive spell formation set up by the fortress collapsed in an instant. Countless blood demons charged toward the second line of defense, which had already reached the fortress. On the fortress, many experts of the various clans displayed their ultimate techniques. They were very experienced in dealing with blood demons. Unfortunately, the blood demon tide this time was far beyond their imagination. They were not afraid of death at all. Everything they did was for the sake of capturing the fortress. How dare you? At this time, dozens of powerful figures flew up and charged into the crowd of blood demons. They slaughtered them wantonly. They were all powerful experts at the peak of the mythical level who were guarding the fortress. The blood demon tide this time was too strange. They did not care about the casualties or the gains and losses. All they wanted was to capture the fortress. This made them unable to sit still. In the past, although the blood demons were crazy, they would never do anything without a reason. They would not suffer such a huge number of casualties for no reason. Therefore, these elders could not sit still anymore. They all took action. As expected, as soon as these experts at the peak of the mythical level took action, they immediately reversed the situation and stopped the advancing blood demon tide outside the fortress. The concept of a peak mythical level expert and an ordinary mythical level expert was simply not the same. However, soon, the experts at the peak of the mythical level in the blood demon tide also charged toward the elders of the fortress under Yi Shiwen's control. Boom! 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 These powerful experts at the peak of the mythical level fought with each other. Their fight caused the sky to collapse and the earth to crack. The surrounding space had just been repaired when it was completely destroyed. Above the blood cloud, Yi Shiwen stood with his hands behind his back. He looked at the battle below indifferently. The person he was waiting for had not appeared yet. Therefore, he was not in a hurry to take action. Who are you? How dare you control these blood demons to attack us? Come out and meet me if you have the guts. A cold shout came from the fortress. Then a powerful figure with a terrifying aura rushed out and pinched a blood demon at the peak of the mythical level to death. His body was surrounded by countless rules that formed golden threads, indicating that he was only half a step away from the Tao-proving realm. He was only a little bit away. Who else could this person be but Jing Tianlei? This was the first time Yi Shiwen had seen Jing Tianlei in person. He was even more powerful than the rumors said. He was indeed only a little bit away. Judging by his momentum, he would definitely be able to prove his Tao in less than 100 years. He could tell at a glance that the blood demon tide this time was very abnormal. Someone was probably controlling it from behind. You've come at the right time. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Yi Shiwen's figure directly swept down from the blood cloud. He directly rushed towards Jing Tianlei with a tremendous momentum. Soul-breaking blood claw. His claw directly scratched out 5 blood scars, shattering the vast sky. The claws grew bigger and bigger. In an instant, they had grown to thousands of feet in size. They directly slammed down towards Jing Tianlei. Jing Tianlei was immediately shocked. He could feel the terrifying power contained in the 5 claw shadows. He fiercely stomped his feet and directly flew thousands of miles away. The 5 blood scars directly fell on the fortress, causing the entire fortress to rumble and shake. Countless arrays were instantly annihilated. A huge hole instantly appeared in the defense line that could withstand the attack. Countless blood demons swarmed out, and the defense line instantly collapsed. However, Yi Shiwen did not care so much. He directly took a step forward and rushed in front of Jing Tianlei. At this time, Jing Tianlei finally saw clearly who the person was. It was actually Yi Shiwen. In the past 5 years, he had not been able to find Yi Shiwen's whereabouts. Although he had always been worried about Yi Shiwen, he did not pay too much attention to him. How could Amir Jr. pose a threat to him? Who would have thought that it was Yi Shiwen who caused all of this today? Chapter 2194. You didn't expect that I would come to take your life today. There are many accounts between us that need to be settled. Yi Shiwen's eyes were extremely sharp. Back then, he was just a small fry who had just entered the mythical realm. He was besieged by 3 masters at the peak of the mythical realm and almost died. If it wasn't for Emperor Qin's life force that saved him, he would have died a long time ago. Among the 3 masters at the peak of the mythical realm, one of them was sent by Jing Tianlei. Both sides already had a blood feud. Jing Tianlei's forehead was also directly covered in cold sweat. He didn't expect that in just 5 years, Yi Shiwen would grow to this point. 5 years ago, Yi Shiwen could only avoid their sharp edges. Now he was actually so terrifying. But now, he didn't have any other choice, so he didn't say much nonsense. A long sword appeared in his hand, and he directly threw it out. Immediately, an amazing sword aura appeared. The sword aura tore the sky, unpredictable and extremely powerful. After all, he was only half a step away from the Tao realm. He was much stronger than the likes of young Master Yang. Even if he was compared to the incarnation of the Xingyang City Lord, he was not the slightest bit inferior or even stronger. Yi Shiwen spread out his hand, and his big hand suddenly grabbed out. The void suddenly froze, and this sword chi seemed to be blocked by some kind of power in midair, and couldn't move forward at all. Bang! The sword aura was like a colored glaze, and it shattered on the spot and splashed out. Impossible! How can there be no reaction at all? Jing Tianlei's back was constantly cold. 5 years ago, he was not so strong at all. He had complete confidence that he could kill Yi Shiwen with his body. The top 10 of the 3rd district is only SOSO. Yi Shiwen sneered, and a majestic murderous aura filled the air, directly distorting the space. Suddenly, it seemed that his whole body was distorted, and nothing could be seen. Clang! The long sword in his hand burst out with golden light in the boundless darkness. It was as dazzling as the sun. The sword aura burst out thousands of feet long and directly slashed down, fiercely chopping towards Jing Tianlei. Jing Tianlei was directly blasted away, and his whole body spurted out a mouthful of blood. On the spot, Yi Shiwen had blasted out a formidable power, causing him to suffer serious injuries. Yi Shiwen continued to chase after him. He was merciless and directly chased after him. This time, he clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and squeezed it into a big golden fist. Human Dao Fist. He blasted out a human Dao fist, blasting out a human Dao world. Countless mighty figures of the human clan manifested their figures in it, and it was enough to suppress all the worlds in the universe. Pooh! Jing Tianlei spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot. All his martial arts were shattered in an instant. Under Yi Shiwen's series of attacks, he had no way to fight back at all. Yi Shiwen gained the upper hand from the very beginning. Most importantly, his strength was far inferior to Yi Shiwen's. Whoosh! A blade light flashed, and Jing Tianlei's head rolled down. His eyes were wide open. He couldn't believe that he had died in Yi Shiwen's hands so easily. After Jing Tianlei's death, this fortress had no power to fight back under Yi Shiwen's offensive. It was completely destroyed by the endless demon beasts, and the wealth of this fortress had also fallen into Yi Shiwen's hands. It had to be said that Jing Tianlei's fortress was much stronger than the Soaring Cloud Fortress and the Sky-Bearing Fortress. There were actually 4 bloodstone mines, and now these bloodstone mines had also fallen into Yi Shiwen's hands, making him suddenly rich. Originally, these bloodstone mines also belonged to the entire fortress. Although Jing Tianlei was the supervisor, it was impossible for him to take all of them for himself. But now it was different. It completely belonged to Yi Shiwen. For an ordinary person, it was simply impossible to take away these bloodstone mines. However, Yi Shiwen still had the means to do so. He directly deduced the nearby veins of the bloodstone mines and directly used Tianyuan Mirror to dig away these bloodstone mines. After cleaning up the mess here, he directly removed the control of these blood demons. Otherwise, even he wouldn't be able to bear such consumption. Then he began to rush back to the Soaring Cloud Fortress. And at this time, the entire Void Realm was suddenly stirred. The reason was that Jing Tianlei, one of the top 10 existences in the 3rd area, who was only half a step away from becoming a powerful existence, was actually dead. Yes, he was dead. This was because Jing Tianlei had also left a spirit incarnation in the Void Realm. This spirit incarnation had disappeared in front of everyone when he was participating in a truth discussion conference in the Void Realm. There was only one possibility, and that was Jing Tianlei was dead. Only then could it be possible. Suddenly, everyone was stirred. Although Jing Tianlei hadn't reached the truth realm, his tyrannical strength was also obvious to all. It was simply impossible for someone to kill an existence like him, unless it was an expert at the truth realm. However, with Jing Tianlei's intelligence, he shouldn't have provoked an existence at the truth realm. So, what exactly did he encounter? How did he die? And it wasn't just him. Some of the geniuses in the 3rd area who had sought refuge with him had also died tragically on the spot. No one could imagine what they had encountered. How could they have all died together? Did they encounter a blood demon tide? This was also the only reasonable explanation. However, even if they encountered a blood demon tide and the entire fortress was breached, they shouldn't have been unable to escape. Unless it was an expert at the truth realm, or if they were captured by dozens or hundreds of experts, it would be impossible to cause such a huge impact. The news was still spreading at an astonishing speed. Nobody believed that one of the top 10 existences in the third area had actually died, along with all his subordinates. As an existence that was close to reaching the truth realm as long as he didn't die, even among the upper echelons of the deification abyss, he was well known and deeply favored by some big shots. Even though everyone knew that anything could happen in the blood prison, and even death was normal, they still couldn't remain calm when such an important figure died. There was even a rumor that when the news reached the upper echelons of the deification abyss, some of the upper echelons were so furious that they couldn't wait to kill their way into the blood prison to investigate everything. Amidst the clamor, yet another semi-annual battle tournament was about to begin. No matter where they were, even if they were in the blood prison, these geniuses in the third area would also rush back. There were very few people like Yi Shiwen who didn't care about it at all. Amidst such a clamor, Yi Shiwen also appeared in a city in the void. 5 years ago, he was still a prominent figure. Countless people were paying attention to the duels between him, Yao Xingqing and Jing Tianlei. However, 5 years had passed, and the duels had been held for a total of 10 times. No one knew how many people had entered and how many people had been eliminated. The situation had changed. Except for Yao Xingqing, Jing Tianlei, and the others, no one remembered this prominent figure from 5 years ago unless someone specifically reminded them. Inside the city, there were many warriors and cultivators coming and going. It wasn't just the third region. Many experts from the blood prison also had their own primordial spirit incarnations in the void realm. Therefore, although the void was only a virtual world, it was not worse than the real world. On the contrary, it was more prosperous. Sigh, we are really old. There are always new talents in every generation. Nowadays, the speed at which the new generation replaces the old is getting faster and faster. Isn't that so? 7 years ago, that monkey had just entered the deification abyss. In the competition half a year ago, he actually entered the top 20. This time, it is very likely that he will go further. It is said that he has been valued by a big shot in the upper echelons. He is also a powerful figure in the ape clan. He was accepted as a disciple by the big shot so he can progress so quickly. There are not many geniuses like that monkey in the ape clan. Now that a genius has finally appeared, it is natural to cultivate him well. Yi Shiwen entered a tea house. The business was very good. There were many people coming and going, and countless words fell into his ears. What surprised him was that he actually heard information about the monkey again. It seemed that in the past 5 years, he had also made rapid progress. Half a year ago, he had entered the top 20. Those who could enter the top 20 were, without exception, existences at the peak of the myth realm. Some even had hopes of entering the top 10. Now the times have changed. This time, many people who originally occupied the top 100 were kicked out because their time limit was up and they had yet to reach the Tao realm. Huyan Ayanu is surprising. I didn't expect that she, who was originally ranked 11th, would suddenly become a new force. She is simply invincible in the world. Last time, she directly rushed into the top 5. This time, she might even be able to compete for the first place. Yi Shiwen was somewhat stunned. In the top 10 of the third region, the difficulty of advancing by 1 rank would increase exponentially. It was completely different from before. In other words, Huyan Ayanu was advancing by 1 rank every year. There is another person, Junding Tian. Rumor has it that he is the reincarnation of a deity. His cultivation is terrifyingly powerful. He has never met a worthy opponent. Last time, he had already reached the top 3. This time, I am afraid that he will go further. Next to Yi Shiwen, a middle-aged man could not help but say. He sighed. These were all heaven's favored ones. Although their cultivation was not as high as his, they were still existences that he could not compare with. The most powerful one is the newcomer who just came last year, Jian Fan Xian. It is said that he is a peerless genius selected by the Sword World. His cultivation is unparalleled. Although he is a bit annoying, his cultivation is indeed unparalleled. His rise reminds me of that person 5 years ago. Chapter 2195. Are you talking about that person? Someone seemed to have thought of something. If that's the case, then it's true. That person is also amazing. It's just that he has been quiet for the past 5 years. I don't know if he's dead or alive. You have to know that the people who are chasing him are not ordinary people. After hearing these people's words, more and more people remembered that man who had pierced the sky as soon as he arrived. What did it mean to be lawless? That was lawless. Is he very powerful? A young man said indignantly. Who the hell is he? What qualifications does he have to be compared with Jian Fan Xian? A slightly chubby old man next to the young man looked at him and couldn't help but say with a smile, "You must be a newcomer." So what? The young man said indignantly. He just didn't know who that person from a few years ago was. I said that he must be a newcomer. Otherwise, we wouldn't be so ignorant. That person's name is Yi Shiwen. Speaking of his achievements are not as good as Jian Fan Xian's. However, the things he did were extremely sensational. It was almost his first time participating in the competition, and he had already entered the top 100. It was a sensation for a while, and could be said to be world-shaking. Someone said with a smile. The young man naturally didn't believe it. He had just arrived in the past few years. All he had heard was Jian Fan Xian's achievements. As for Yi Shiwen, only God knew when he had arrived. Only God knew what was so great about him. If he was really so great, why hadn't they heard of him before? I don't believe it. It's just that when the tiger is not in the mountain, the monkey becomes the king. If Jian Fan Xian was there at that time, he definitely wouldn't have had the chance to be in the limelight. Someone next to him sneered and said, he is just relatively low-key and is being chased. That monkey that defies the natural order has also said more than once in public that he was not Yi Shiwen's opponent at that time. The young man's face turned red and said, that's just a few years earlier. If he had come a few years later, he might not have been able to be arrogant in front of Jian Fan Xian. If he was really so great, why didn't I see him even once in the arena? I think he was simply eliminated. What do you know? He just left to avoid being chased. Do you know who was chasing him? Jing Tianlei and Yao Xingqing, who are the top 10 in the third region. Do you understand now? He escaped into the blood prison to avoid those two. There is no news that he has been killed. He is the only one who can survive being chased by those two. An old man couldn't help but say. Perhaps they might not have been convinced at that time, but at this time, they naturally couldn't see a newcomer being arrogant, especially when this person was Jian Fan Xian. What is there to be proud of for someone who doesn't even have an actual battle record? Wait until he appears in front of us, if he has the ability. Maybe he has already died somewhere. Besides, Jing Tianlei wasn't that powerful. Isn't he dead now? The young man said indignantly. He had just joined the deity transformation abyss, so he naturally didn't have any understanding of those so-called legends. In fact, he didn't even feel anything. After speaking, he was indignant and left the table, unwilling to continue staying. Jian Fan Xian, Sword World. Yi Shiwen only knew one person from the Sword World, and that was Jian Wuchen. The Sword World was also a famous world among the heavens. It was the holy land of swordsmen. There were countless extremely powerful swordsmen who comprehended swordsmanship in the Sword World. However, although they were famous, very few of their disciples traveled outside. Jian Wuchen was one of them, and this Jian Fan Xian was the second disciple that Yi Shiwen had seen from the Sword World. However, it seemed that Jian Fan Xian wasn't that popular, but this had nothing to do with him. Even if he was a disciple from the Sword World, it had nothing to do with him. But today seems to be Huyin Ayanu's Dao discussion. Ever since he successfully broke into the top 10, he would hold a Dao discussion before every battle. Sigh. It's a pity that we aren't qualified to go in. At most, we can only listen from outside. Yes, the people invited to the Dao discussion every year are powerful existences who can rank in the top 100. In other words, people below the 9th level of Paoang realm have no chance to participate in his Dao discussion. Many people suddenly burst into discussion. For them, Participating in Huyen Ayanu's Tao discussion seemed to have become a symbol of honor. Not everyone was qualified to participate. Tao discussion interesting. There was no one on the seats, and only the voices slowly dissipated. Huyen Ayanu's Tao discussion was held in a valley in the Void Realm. There were birdsong and fragrant flowers everywhere. Immortal birds and beasts were everywhere. Yi Shiwen walked in slowly. He was mixed in the crowd, but he didn't stand out. Deep in the valley was the venue for the discussion. Hundreds of seats were set up on both sides. Everyone knew that these seats were reserved for the top 100 experts of the third region, because not everyone would come. In fact, less than half of the people would come. Moreover, some experts at the peak of the myth realm would come from other regions. It was just enough to accommodate the top 100 experts of the third region. And in the center, there were 10 thrones. Apart from Huyen Ayanu, who always sat in the main seat, the rest were tyrannical experts. Only a few people were qualified to sit here. The crowd entered the valley. Those who were qualified to sit took their seats, and those who were not could only listen by the side. They were all at the peak of the mythical stage. A few casual words from them might be a great piece of advice to others. Sun Qingtian is here. No one knew when, but someone shouted. Then, a golden-haired monkey came in and sat firmly on a throne. He was tall and straight. After not seeing him for a few years, his aura was even more powerful. 7 years ago, he was already at the 8th level of Paoang realm. Now, he was at the peak of the myth realm. He was extremely tyrannical. After Sun Qingtian, another middle-aged man walked in quickly and immediately caused a commotion. This middle-aged man was 2 meters tall, and a horn on his head glowed golden under his eyes. From the surrounding people's discussion, Yi Shiwen found out that this man was called 10 Absolute Saint. He had just become the 10th strongest existence in the third region. The number of people in the third region was not fixed. A large number of people would be eliminated every 100 years. Moreover, some new people would be added every once in a while, and some old people would be eliminated. And this 10 Absolute Saint was a newcomer who had been added to the top 10 last time. He was tyrannical and occupied one of the thrones as soon as he came. And behind him, the blue-eyed golden toad also slowly walked in. He was wearing a dark green robe that revealed a kind of strangeness. Like the monkey, he had also entered the peak of the myth realm. Following closely behind him was a young man carrying a sword who was not inferior to the blue-eyed golden toad. Just like 5 years ago, he carried a long sword on his shoulder, like a peerless swordsman of his generation. In the blink of an eye, 4 of the 10 seats had been occupied. The crowd started to buzz. It seemed that it should be almost full. Every time there were 10 seats, only 1 or 2 people would come. But this time, there were a few more people. There were actually 4 experts of this level, including Huyen Ayanu. It was equivalent to having 5 peerless existences at the peak of the myth realm. Seeing an old friend, Yi Shiwen did not intend to continue hiding his whereabouts. He walked forward directly. His appearance immediately caused a commotion in the crowd. Some people only felt that he was a little familiar, but they could not remember for a moment. Who dared to walk directly to the throne area? One must know that there were not many people who were qualified to sit there. There were only a few people in total. Even though there were 10 seats, they had never been filled up. Seeing someone coming over, these 4 people were a little stunned to see who it was. Who knew that with one look, except for the 10 absolute saints, the other 3 reacted immediately. This was because the impression that Yi Shiwen had given them back then was too deep. Even after 5 years had passed, they did not dare to say that they had already won against Yi Shiwen. After all, it had been 5 years. Wouldn't Yi Shiwen have worked hard to cultivate during these 5 years? It was only possible if he was really dead, as the rumors said. The 10 Absolute Saints also quickly remembered Yi Shiwen. The battle 5 years ago was too amazing. Although Yi Shiwen had left halfway, it did not prevent them from leaving a deep impression on Yi Shiwen. At this time, more than half of the onlookers also recognized him. Perhaps in the past 5 years, his reputation had indeed not been prominent, but as long as he appeared, he would immediately become the focus of everyone's attention. "That's great, brother. I can still see you back." The monkey somersaulted down and said in surprise. In the past 5 years, he had also gone to the blood prison several times. Although he did not completely live in the blood prison like Yi Shiwen, he had also gone there many times. However, there was no news of Yi Shiwen at all. He almost thought that Yi Shiwen was already dead, either in the hands of the blood demon, or in the hands of Yao Xingqing or Jing Tianlei. He did not expect to see him again now. I haven't seen you for 5 years. Everyone is still as elegant as ever. Yi Shiwen smiled and directly sat on one of the thrones. Then, he began to communicate with the monkey. Who is he? How dare he sit on the throne? I've never heard of him. You've never heard of him? You're not a newcomer. Have you forgotten Yi Shiwen from 5 years ago? Oh, so it's him. No wonder, no wonder. He is indeed qualified. Suddenly, while everyone was still thinking about Yi Shiwen's identity, a commotion came from the entrance of the valley. Jinfan Xin is here. Chapter 2196. Jinfan Xin is here. There was a commotion in the crowd. Many people looked towards the entrance of the valley, only to see another peerless swordsman walking over. He was slightly shorter than the average person, only 6 feet tall at most. He was skinny, and no one knew what race he was from. His entire body was covered in green scales, and his eyes were spirited like a sharp sword piercing through the heavens. A sword was hanging from his waist. It was deeply sheathed, but there was an unconcealable sharpness to it. A kind of sharp aura automatically separated the crowd. Some people with sharp eyes had already recognized him. He has actually entered the 9th heaven of Paoang realm. It has only been a few years. What a fast progress. They say that he is a peerless genius in the sword world. It seems that it is true. He is indeed qualified to do so. What a strong sword chi. The martial arts in my body are so restless that they are about to cry. When they discovered that he had entered the 9th heaven of Paoang realm, everyone's expression changed. Having entered this realm, Jinfan Xin had become one of the top figures in the 3rd district. Coupled with the innate offensive ability of a swordsman, even the old guys who had been in this realm for a long time could not do anything to him. His status was also completely different. Monkey, who was drinking with Yi Shiwen, glanced at him. His face slightly darkened, and then he said, "Why is it him? He is Jinfan Xin?" Yi Shiwen looked at Jinfan Xin with interest. He had heard people comparing him to Jinfan Xin before, so it was inevitable that he would be a little worried. Jinfan Xin was indeed like what everyone had said. His entire body exuded an unruly aura. It made sense. He was able to rise in Division 3 in just a few years. He indeed had the qualifications and strength to be unruly. Well, that's right. The newcomers are especially wild, Monkey said with some dissatisfaction. Monkey himself was not a good-tempered person, but Jinfan Xion's arrogance was above his. He also said that he will definitely be the champion within 5 years. While the two of them were talking, Jinfan Xian suddenly walked towards them. They did not say anything. Although Jinfan Xian had just entered the 9th heaven of the Paoang realm and was not yet at the peak of the myth realm, with his strength as a swordsman, it was still possible for him to take this position. However, he directly bypassed the crowd and arrived in front of Yi Shiwen. He glanced at him and said, "Forget about them. Who are you? Why does he have to sit on the throne?" In his eyes, there was some disdain. He was barely qualified to take a seat, and this level 7 of the Paoang realm actually dared to sit here. What does it have to do with you? Yi Shiwen frowned and said, "This is not a place where just anyone can sit. Otherwise, wouldn't you be asking me to sit with you?" Jinfan Xian said coldly. Only then did everyone understand that he did not want to lower his status. Ha ha ha, this is going to be interesting. Of all the people Jinfan Xian wanted to find trouble with, he actually chose Yi Shiwen. This is going to be interesting. Yi Shiwen is known as the strongest disciple of that year. 5 years ago, he easily defeated an expert at the 9th heaven of Paoang realm. 5 years later, his strength is probably even higher. It can be said that his strength is unfathomable. But this Jinfan Xian is not an ordinary person. Previously, When he was still at the 8th heaven of Palong realm, he was able to fight against the 9th heaven of Palong realm. Now, he has directly entered the 9th heaven of Palong realm. His strength is immeasurable. There were many old people present. Although Yi Shiwen had only caught a glimpse of him, he had left a deep impression on them. Undoubtedly, the clash between the two strongest newcomers of the generation had undoubtedly excited them. While I'm still in a good mood, you'd better get out of here. Otherwise, when the time comes, Yi Shiwen said bluntly. You are Yi Shiwen? Jian Fan Xian also heard the discussion around him. He looked at the human in front of him with some surprise. You have such a great reputation for nothing. I heard that 5 years ago, because you wanted to avoid Yao Xingqing and Jing Tianlei. You were chased into the blood prison like a stray dog. Is that true? Jian Fan Xian said, I didn't believe it at first. Now it seems to be somewhat true. 5 years ago, it was said that you were already at the 7th heaven of Palong realm. Now, you are still at this realm. It seems that in the blood prison, you only care about hiding here and there, so you have no time to cultivate. I don't care who you are. I'll say it now. You'd better get out of here before I get angry. In his opinion, Yi Shiwen was no different from 5 years ago. How dare he sit in this position? Moreover, in his heart, there was a faint hostility towards Yi Shiwen. No matter what achievements he made, there were always people comparing him to Yi Shiwen. It was as if he would never be able to walk out of Yi Shiwen's shadow in this life. He was just a stray dog. How could he have such a reputation? We are both from the sword realm, but whether it is broad-mindedness or bearing, you are far worse than Jian Wuchen. Yi Shiwen calmly said, his sword is one of the best among all the swordsmen that I have ever seen. But for you, I can only see the sharpness of your sword, but it's still far from being comparable to you. Hearing Jian Wuchen's name, Jian Fan Xian suddenly pulled a long face and said slowly, I didn't expect you to be his friend. Good, very good. Since you said that my sword is still far from it, do you dare to take my sword? Why wouldn't I dare? I told you, your sword is still far from being able to compete with mine. Do you believe me? Yi Shiwen sneered and said, not to mention Jian Wuchen, you can't even compete with me. Jian Fan Xian's face turned cold, and then he laughed loudly. Then his face was covered with frost, and he said coldly, even Jian Wuchen does not dare to say that he can compare with me in swordsmanship. And you dare to say that? Could it be that you have reached the Dao realm? I don't know what a Dao realm expert is like, but your swordsmanship is full of loopholes, and you have gone astray. Yi Shiwen shook his head. Maybe it is because the opponents you have met before were too weak, so you have such confidence, but that is because you have not met a true master. Do you know why a sword needs a scabbard? Because a sword does not need to show off its edge all the time. Like you, before the fight, your spirit has already been weakened, and you still dare to say that you understand swordsmanship? Buzz! Everyone present was in a frenzy. Yi Shiwen's words were far from just a rebuttal. It could even be said to be directly aimed at Jian Fan Xian's heart, directly pointing at his martial arts. If Jian Fan Xian could not take it, even his martial arts might collapse. Finally, I have seen it. This Yi Shiwen is really amazing. It seems that he can see through everything at a glance. I have to admit, he is indeed very powerful. This is only the first time he has met Jian Fan Xian, and he can already see through him to this extent. If it were us, we would not be able to do it. 5 years have passed, and you are still as arrogant as ever. The blue-eyed golden toad snorted coldly, but did not say much because compared to Yi Shiwen, he hated Jian Fan Xian who had no strength but was arrogant and despotic. Look, Jian Fan Xian has made his move. Suddenly, an invisible murderous aura filled the air, solidifying the air, making people feel a sense of suffocation. This was Jian Fan Xian releasing all of his sword essence. Good, very good. Since you say that you are so powerful, then let me see how capable you are to dare to say such words. Jian Fan Xian snorted coldly. Then don't blame me for being ruthless. Rejoice, rejoice that you are in the void. If you were in the real world, you would not be able to escape death today. As he said this, the real elemental energy in his body surged, and his clothes fluttered without any wind. The sky above his head suddenly darkened, as if it was affected by his sword essence. Then, countless sword essences condensed and soared into the sky, turning the sky upside down. It turned into a Milky Way and fiercely slammed down on Yi Shiwen. Boom! The sword essence was as fast as lightning, bringing with it countless sword lights, born and destroyed in countless worlds. An upright force directly slashed down, cutting the void into countless pieces. At this moment, he was a sword that was unsheathed, showing off its sharpness. Everything in the world rippled, and he was the master of the sword realm. Suddenly, the world turned dark, and all the light was devoured by the sword light that he hurriedly slashed down. Even Yi Shiwen felt it. It was pitch black all around, and he could not see anything at all. There was only that sword between heaven and earth, smashing the Milky Way. Countless people were completely shocked by this sword river of trigrams. It had to be said that Jian Fan Xian's swordsmanship was indeed very powerful. Many people had never seen such a tyrannical swordsman in their lives. Yi Shiwen, this sword of mine is called the Sword of Holy Light. It is the first sword in the universe, and it is also the most powerful sword in the universe. If you dare to say that my swordsmanship is not good, then try and take it. The surroundings were filled with darkness. Only his voice reverberated in the air. A beam of sword light shot out from the darkness, causing all laws to cease to exist. Time no longer existed. Space no longer existed. Everything vanished, completely trapped within the sword light. Strong, very strong. At this moment, Yi Shiwen directly spread out his hands. Just like what he had said earlier, he didn't use any strength at all. He just directly blasted it towards the incoming attack. Clang! An incomparably loud roar sounded, and Yi Shiwen actually directly blocked the sword. Everything was blocked in Yi Shiwen's palm, and his palm slowly closed. The sword light could not break free from Yi Shiwen's palm, and it completely collapsed inch by inch. That was the incarnation of Jian Fan Xian's swordsmanship, and it had infinite power, but it was caught by Yi Shiwen and crushed inch by inch. There was no way, and not even a little bit of aura leaked out. It was completely destroyed by him. Chapter 2197. The most powerful sword in the universe. I'm dying of laughter. Yi Shiwen laughed heartily. The sword radiance in his hand was crushed inch by inch. It was as if the terrifying sword just now was just a joke. Next, you should try to take my sword. In Yi Shiwen's hand, the sword radiance that had been crushed by him reassembled inch by inch. It formed a sword radiance that was even more terrifying than before. It rose into the sky, and the boundless sword radiance illuminated everything. It was like the only sun in the world. Boom! The sword radiance pierced forward. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it had already hit Jian Fan Xian's body in an instant. The speed was too fast, so fast that no one could react in time, and it directly blasted forward. Kaboom! The sword radiance on Jian Fan Xian's body exploded and burst into a series of shocking roars. A monstrous force exploded and instantly blasted Jian Fan Xian away. This force was from Jian Fan Xian's attack. Yi Shiwen returned all of it back to him. Even Jian Fan Xian himself could not withstand such a terrifying force. In an instant, his entire body exploded and melted on the spot. Killed in one move. Everyone was completely dumbfounded. They couldn't believe their eyes. He was killed in one move. He was actually killed in one move. Jian Fan Xian's strength was obvious to all. He was not a weakling in the 9th level of the Paoang realm. He was infinitely close to the peak of the mythical realm. At this rate, it would not take long for him to truly enter the peak of the mythical realm. However, he was killed in one move by Yi Shiwen. Although Jian Fan Xian was killed in one move by his own strength in the 3rd district, how many people could have the confidence to do so? It was simply inhuman. Monkey and the others also looked at Yi Shiwen in surprise. It was as if they had seen a ghost. The reason why they were unhappy with Jian Fan Xin was that although Jian Fan Xin was troublesome, he was not easy to deal with. If he was someone who could be killed in one move, he would not have been able to make it to where he was today. Monkey looked at Yi Shiwen in complete shock. In the past few years, Yi Shiwen's progress had reached a level that could not be measured by whether he had broken through to the 7th level of Paoang Realm or not. Jian Fan Xin didn't appear again. Obviously, he didn't have the face to show up again. He was easily killed by Yi Shiwen in one move, and at the same time his self-esteem was crushed. He had thought that Yi Shiwen wasn't qualified to sit there, but now it seemed that he was the one who wasn't qualified to sit there. The rookies were also stunned. In their hearts, Jian Fan Xin was already extremely powerful. Although they might not be convinced by Jian Fan Xin, they had to admit that Jian Fan Xin was strong. The gap between Jian Fan Xin and Yi Shiwen was only a few years at most. However, in just a few years, the gap between them was already so big to the extent of killing Jian Fan Xin in seconds. They opened their mouths. Even if they wanted to say a few more words for Jian Fan Xin, they did not know what to say. Wonderful, wonderful, ha ha ha. Huyan Enu still arrived late and appeared on the throne. Everything around had been restored to its original state. After all, this was the void, not the real world. Restoring everything was just a matter of thought. As if nothing had happened just now, he glanced at the crowd and said, "This time, I am very honored that everyone can come to participate in this truth discussion conference that I organized, especially Yi Shiwen. I haven't seen you for 5 years, and it seems that you are more elegant than before. Everyone said that Jing Tianlei is dead. Don't tell me that he died in your hands." He seemed to have mentioned this inadvertently. Everyone's eyes turned to look at Yi Shiwen. It seemed as if they wanted to see through everything thoroughly. The news of Jing Tianlei's death caused an uproar in the entire void and the entire deity transformation abyss. Countless people were shocked. No one thought that an expert of Jing Tianlei's level would die in the blood prison. Although the blood prison was full of danger, it was basically impossible for someone at his level to be killed unless he was extremely unlucky and encountered a Tao confirmation level existence. Moreover, from the beginning to the end, it was a very short time. He did not even have the time to escape. It did not seem like the actions of a Tao confirmation level expert. If he really encountered a Tao confirmation level expert, it would not be so simple. He would be crushed to death with one slap. But now, Jing Tianlei was dead, and Yi Shiwen, who he had been chasing, was alive and well, and had appeared in the void dimension. All of this seemed somewhat abnormal. Could it really be related to Yi Shiwen? Yi Shiwen just said with a faint smile, "What do you think?" He did not deny or admit it, and then said, "Is the purpose of this truth discussion conference?" Haha, that's true. This time's mission is not to explore this. Huyan Anu saw that Yi Shiwen did not say much, so she did not ask more. She just said, "If that's the case, then I will start this truth discussion conference. I hope that my dear friends can give me more pointers." The truth discussion conference was divided into 2 parts. The first part was to elaborate on the great Tao that they had comprehended. The second part was the real truth discussion. On the basis of the elaboration, just now, the truth discussion would begin. This was also the part that everyone was most concerned about. The collision of different great Tao was wonderful. Every existence who could cultivate to the 9th level of Paoang Realm was an existence of the great Grandmaster level in the outside world. Moreover, they were almost the elites among the elites. Moreover, there was a terrifying existence like Yi Shiwen who could kill a 9th level of Paoang Realm expert in one move. One could imagine how brilliant the discussion of the Tao was. Everyone listened as if they were intoxicated. Many principles and the great Tao they comprehended were mutually verified, causing them to suddenly obtain extremely great improvements and obtain rather great gains. Even Yi Shiwen was the same. Although he had a wide range of knowledge, coupled with a mysterious space, he could almost be said to have dabbled in many aspects. However, it was impossible to compare with those who specialized in it. Many martial arts theories made Yi Shiwen exclaim in satisfaction. He only felt that his horizons had been broadened. It turned out that Tao enlightenment could also be like this. This was simply a collision of many great Tao. No one was necessarily right, and no one was necessarily wrong. Even many seemingly opposite theories could already be used by two peerless experts. This was a collision of completely different great Tao. It was wonderful. Yi Xuan also felt that whether it was the depth or the breadth of his understanding, he had further improved and gained a lot. Such a truth discussion conference was indeed very beneficial. However, this was only useful for discussing Tao with people of the same realm. If it was to discuss Tao with people much lower than oneself, then there would not be much effect. Although Yi Xuan was only at the 7th level of Paoang realm, his martial arts comprehension was completely above many Paoang realm experts at the peak of the 9th level of Paoang realm. Yi Xuan did not talk about his most specialized swordsmanship, boxing, and so on. On the contrary, he began to talk about many great Tao that he had dabbled in. Everyone couldn't help but be shocked by Yi Xuan's erudition. This was really not something that ordinary people could achieve. To be able to cultivate to this level, which one did not know the principle of inferring other things from one thing. They also understood that understanding one thing leads to 100 things. However, in fact, there were simply very few people who could do it. Because of time, they did not have so much time. After the Tao confirmation, they had unlimited time, but before the Tao confirmation, they had limited time. Like the human race, they only had a lifespan of less than 10,000 years. They could spend a mere thousands of years to have already cultivated to this point by relying on specialization. Specialization in one area, it was possible to be brave and diligent, and they would not waste time in some useless places. However, Yi Xuan was different. He was a very knowledgeable person. It could be said that he could talk about almost all kinds of martial arts. He was clear and logical, as if there was no content that he couldn't dabble in. Not to mention his understanding of sword arts, boxing arts, and so on. It made the experts who also practiced these martial arts feel suddenly enlightened. Naturally, they did not know that while Yi Xuan was preaching, he was constantly deducing with the mysterious space. Therefore, no matter what kind of martial arts they mentioned, he could say a little bit about it. Moreover, he had his own most unique insights. Although it might not be very profound, there was no doubt that he had his own understanding in it. This was the rarest and also the most shocking thing for everyone. 3 days had passed. Yi Xuan had already consumed as many as 10 divine sources just from preaching and discussing the Tao. However, he felt that everything was worth it, because in these 3 days he had been preaching and discussing the Tao nonstop, which had made the Tao in front of him more and more clear. It made him feel that the future path was also getting clearer and clearer. The more he dabbled in, the more martial arts he dabbled in. Even many martial arts that he had not dabbled in before. Now he had dabbled in them all at once. This also made his horizons constantly expand. His understanding of martial arts had already reached a very profound level. Now, it had reached an even more shocking level. This made him have an impulse to immediately find a place to close up so that he could break into the legendary realm in one fell swoop. There was only a little bit left. It was nothing more than a matter of when the conditions were right. As long as he could comprehend the divine Tao law, everything would be logical. However, he did not have this time because the semi-annual competition had officially begun. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.